How are you, Gertrude?
I have recovered quite a bit.
Recovered from what was
The last
quite a
7
traumatic
months.
sort of
From
upheaval for you?
it was just really drained my energy, and now I have since Christmas Eve just family, relaxing, just lazy.
With benefit of hindsight, do you wish you had made that shift earlier? Or did it happen in its own time at the right time for you?
Yeah, I had that question with my husband today.
Can I ask what was the shift that you made? Because I don't know how much you can talk about it, but basically, have you withdrawn from what you were doing?
No, vice versa.
Okay.
No. Gertrude stayed, but a person.
I was just like
somebody else left. Yeah.
Defender, the warrior to defend the source, and I think it has been a peaceful ending, and I'm not sure if that would have been possible before.
Okay.
So
it happened in its right time.
Yeah, I could have, should have, I don't know, but
but
it feels that I was not right. So I had to grow up a bit, and I had to stand for myself, and to stand for the purpose, and not just have wishes or complaints or feel hurt or so it was really kind of this inner thing,
inner of evolution, awakening, transformation.
Yeah. And our conversation months ago, that was a turning point for me to, not always questioning myself, but to say, hey, that's really not okay. So,
this isn't about me.
My perception, there is something really weird and wrong.
Yeah.
And then coming to my own senses, to my own strength, that was really a journey. So it was not just, here it is. It really took a lot. And then the 2 offers came in. So I had to work quite a bit, really, like 24/7 for 2-3 months. And to bring that all together, I was really exhausted at the end of the year, really, and happy at the same time.
So first step, it all comes down, it all ends up on your shoulders, and then bam, bam, you have monstrous demand. No time to think, no time to breathe, no time to go, okay.
And the book as well, I was really intentional to read it, and then I was like,
that's okay. I actually like that, because what I'm going to send you is exponentially better than what you would have read then, number one. Number two, I think I have a better chance of your reading it this time because you're guilty.
Because of?
Because you're guilty that you didn't read it the
Yeah.
last time. And so it's sort of, I feel sort of like I still have some powder for my musket. I still have some folks that, will give it a good look over, and in a condition where we feel like it's much closer to final.
Yeah. And I'm not the language type. I'm the content type.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Have you ever had a look into mine?
I
I write your own. I mean,
I have it like literally sitting in the to read queue, and it's sitting up. It's like bumping its head up against the top of the list, and I just haven't been reading anything because it's been all I can do to keep up with,
yeah, I think
in
the
my
only
face
two
demand and
people
flow.
that have read it right is Anna and Tammy.
Yeah.
And that was such a treat. Thank you again, Anna. I mean, it was so wonderful to have somebody who's really like committed to going along. Thank you so much. Yeah, and for May, I want to have it in a printed form for the integral conference in Hungary.
When is that?
May, end May.
End of May.
Phew. And I have two wonderful, wonderful grandchildren. So great, and yeah, I'm so also impressed by my daughter as a mother, and I'm so happy to have those three grown-up daughters. And after about 10 years or so, they wanted to spend New Year's Eve with us, not only Christmas. It was like,
wow,
Christmas is family, but then it's friends.
You're moving up in the world.
And we had a blast in an African restaurant with African food, and we drummed the new year, when at almost 12 o'clock, 50 drums.
Wow.
It's really great. And yesterday I did a lot of tarot, angel cards, whatever. So several. I have a lot of collections. It was good. It's really like, yeah. So you have been exhausted, and now it's time to look for yourself and to open up to new possibilities. That's about.
So is it fair to say you're heading into 2020 pretty thoroughly unblocked?
Talking about not knowing what I don't know, I cannot say that exactly, but about the known blocks, I came quite a bit, yeah. Further.
That's a really interesting response, because in between the lines, what you're really saying is, I'm reserving rights to be blocked, to have new stuff come up. And I just wonder, and I may be completely wrong, but I just wonder whether we almost have this vestigial imperative, even if we're completely clear of all of the shadow stuff and old stuff, and like in clear air, clear water, no impediments ahead, or with clarity, sufficient clarity so that even whatever the mountains are ahead, that we can see our way through them. that, but I'm just going to put aside this little 5% fear reserve for contingencies that, quote, I don't know about. And what is that about? Like, um, why is that such a natural tendency?
No, I for me, I've done some work with Landmark. I don't know if you know it.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So this is like, there's something I know that I know, and then there's something that I know that I don't know, but then there's a lot I know I don't know that I even don't know.
Right.
So this is like, it's not anxiously waiting for that, but being open that this might break open and show new lights on things I didn't even had a clue that they
Realize
were.
we're working. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more like, yeah, not fixating on this. It's more, yeah, just be aware.
Might be there.
There's a lot of stuff you don't know.
Right.
And you
I think
don't
it's
know.
also being, sorry,
Pardon?
I think it's also being realistic, because in fact, we really don't know. I mean, that is the reality. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. We think we do. We can see the mountains, we can see our way through, but that really is not it.
Yeah.
We really don't know. So I think that's being realistic, to just keep a possibility of things.
Yeah, it doesn't have an anxious note, Doug.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like that. No.
So it's not that don't know equals fear.
No.
But it is recognizing that there's don't know out there. So, just be open to the curveball.
As
Hey,
my father used to say, there's a lot between heaven and earth we don't know. So,
welcome, Colin. Welcome, Jazz.
hi. And I would like to know about all of you, but specifically Doug and Anna, because I just jumped in and then.
Well, I can give a quick update for me. I pulled a muscle in my back, so I'm sort of cutting back from what I was doing, being less active. It was very minor and it doesn't really hurt. I'm just aware of a soreness there, and remembering that I carried a parcel that was a bit heavy, and just really trying to allow for the fact that I can't do what I think I can do, and just getting used to that. But the first night that I became aware of this pain in my back, I was scared. And it's so easy how fear can come when something unexpected happens and you don't know what it is. Now I've looked it up on Google and spoken to people, and it's actually not that serious. So the fear is gone. But that first night when I was sort of alone with that pain and not knowing what it was, yeah, I don't think that fear is ever, well, maybe you might have a different experience of that, but for me, fear is Yeah, I wouldn't like to say that I'm completely, well, anything unexpected can happen. That's what I feel. And my reaction also could be anything. I can't predict how I'm going to react. So even though I'm getting a lot of support from A Course in Miracles, and I feel really connected to um, something bigger than myself, it's, yeah, it's not foolproof.
And how is it now? You're back?
Oh, it's fine. It's there. I can feel it's there, and so I just have to be careful, walking and moving. But and these things do take, weeks or sometimes months just to resolve. But I'm not scared anymore. That's the bit that's really changed. Yeah.
Well, I have had past tense of back history um, with 4 surgeries, 3 of which were completely unnecessary. And the first one, I was in a wheel, I couldn't walk when it was a compressed disc that herniated in. But it was so thoroughly successful that the placebo value of surgery in service to relieving back pain is what drove the second, the third, and the fourth. And after the fourth, there was nothing left to operate on, basically. And of course, the pain came back. And a month of 2 painkillers every 4 hours. And I get to the end of the month and I'm like, this isn't sustainable. Like, I'm not going to continue doing this. And that day, actually, I think it was my mother came to visit us and dropped off a book by a guy named Sarnow, a doctor here in the United States, and called Healing Back Pain. And he was a orthopedic back person and decided to do some research on back pain. And what he did was he did imagery of 100 people, 50 people with chronic and recurring histories of back problems, and 50 people with no history of any back problem ever. And what he found is that their films all looked identical. They all had bone spurs, they all had compressed discs, they all had herniated discs, they all had all of the same morphic, structures and defects and whatever, but 50% had pain and horrible symptoms and repetitive interventions of Western medicine. 50% nothing. So what's going on here? Maybe it has nothing to do with the structural reality of their bodies. And what he found was that basically, if the people with the history of back problems rewound the videotape in their lives and examined what was going on psychologically and emotionally at the times where the back episodes occurred, 10 out of 10 times, there was an emotional stressor, a psychological and emotional stressor that was occurring that they were not dealing with, they were stuffing. And that the source of the pain wasn't anything structural or wrong with their spine. the source of the pain was their body saying, you're stuffing your feelings and not dealing with this stuff. And if you keep doing that, it's going to hurt. We're going to get hurt. Like, it's going to cause real physical problems. And so what actually happens is that the autonomic muscles that control blood flow were being constricted. And that the pain was actually the result of lack of oxygen to the muscles. And the reason it was really easy for Western medicine to kick it to orthopedics for surgeries and all that stuff is because the circulatory system mirrors the nervous system. So constrain the blood flow, cause the muscle spasms and the muscle pain. And it's a warning system. It's, deal with your shit or else we're going to deal with you. And so I get halfway through the book and I look back and I think about the 4 surgeries and I think about what was going on. And every single time was exactly the same work profile, financial mess. Instructed by my hands so that I could triumphantly survive it to come out the far side to validate that, yes, I'm worthwhile and valid and legitimate. My own shadow shit. And it was identical. It was almost like the same movie 4 times in a row. And I get halfway through even thinking about it, and then all of a sudden I notice the pain is going away. By the time I was done processing it all, I had no more pain. And he said people also that have, quote, back problems evolve this belief that they have a bad back. And that's bullshit too. And that the truth is, if you process the stuff that put you down, you'll get back up and your back is fine. And I haven't had a problem since 2002. Nary a twinge. I schlepped a truckload of stuff out here, loaded it, unloaded it, loaded it into the house. Not a problem. And it was all belief-based.
That's actually interesting because I've started a new class this week. Well, this past week, on Wednesday. It's a new class of A Course in Miracles, and it's in order to do the lessons, which I've never done properly. I sort of read through, there are 365 lessons, 1 for each day of the year, and there are certain ways to practice them, but I really just skimmed through them. And I feel like I need to really put some effort into that. So I've joined this class. There are only 3 other people. So it's a nice small class, but there is something there about really taking this on in a sort of full frontal way that is probably scaring me. It feels like I'm committed now to really doing some serious work. And it was just very, before that, it's just been, well, if you want to do it, it's fine, but you don't feel like doing it, don't, Now it feels different. So yeah, that could be to do with this whole event. Yeah. over. Colin, do you want to check in? And well, there's the 3 guys who haven't checked in. You want to check in?
Good. Yeah, it's a mild day with a light snowfall. Sunday actually means something to me now as I go to work during the week. Before, all the days blurred together, so I have a little more structure. And yeah, I've contemplated some of these ideas of the context of certainty. So I have some things I can say about that as well, but I'll let the other people check in.
Alex, you have 2 cents for us this morning?
Well, everything's in flames over here. But I'm just worried about this bushfire coming closer to where I live. Been outside planting trees during the day, putting in date palms and seedlings, but that's not going to replace what's been lost in this fire. It's just a drop in the ocean. But, you know, it gets me outside, and it's a positive thing to be outside in nature, even if I'm not doing anything. So it's just one of those things, you put the dots together and you say, well, I'm out here in the yard, I might as well plant some trees. And that's using recycled plastic containers to get seedlings growing. If I'm only one of the population, I tell my friends that if everybody did this, we'd have nothing to worry about. And it's a message that I'd like to pass on. There's one of the sayings on the wall at those groups says, pass it on. Network the message around, play it forward. Gaming, if we're going to have a fun gaming, then you need a structure to the game, because games have rules. And then some of the members of the coalition don't like rules. But the thing is, if we don't work together as a team, we can't achieve any goals we make. Yeah, that's about where I'm at.
How near is the fire to you, Alex?
They're about 100 kilometres away. The closest spot fires have been happening out in the Atherton tablelands, about 100 kilometres from here. And they're only spot fires. There's no big fires like they're getting down in New South Wales. They've lost half the coast down there. So it's a pretty serious situation. And people are in distress because of the restrictions, like people who were on holiday can't get home, and the people that are home can't get out because the roads are blocked. Lots of roads are closed. Panic and chaos everywhere. And the army coming in, the armed forces delivering supplies and ferrying people out of places. And it's all on the news. I don't know how much the media are covering it, but I believe most of the big major networks have mentioned it. And so I've been thinking about the session we had at the barn racing most of the day, because we came to a conclusion that things needed to change in order for there to be a difference made. You know, we're not making a difference. We're just meeting every week and yarning about stuff and going on ranting about things, but not really making any concrete decisions about structure of the group and teamwork. So there's something happening there. Sam's got some plans, which is all very exciting. And it's good to see a couple of women here. We need a special session for women to talk about engagement with the group, what they like and don't like, so the men can see it in print and then respond. And if you don't tell us what you like talking about, we tend to go on a rant of our own. Anyway, that's where I'm at the moment. I'll leave it at that. Good to see all your faces.
Thank you for that. Jazz?
Each and every experience we have makes us stronger. Fear has degrees from mild anxiety to severe distress. You can't see the end distressful, long-term distress. You just have to keep reminding yourself. It'll get better even if it doesn't. It may be false hope, but it's hope. I used to, that was a long time ago, I think that was around about the turn of the century. I debated that with myself on the way back from my maternal village to Amritsar Airport, in the coach, in the rickshaw, in the city. What's the difference between false hope and real hope? And how do we know? Why worry anyway? What is it I have to lose apart from living? And if I'm dead, I'll either go somewhere and come back or I won't, according to the perceived ideologies. And what's the empirical evidence saying? The empirical evidence says everything is reused. Everything has a lifespan. If everything has a lifespan, then the exact opposite must exist, that has a limitless lifespan, from a minuscule lifespan to a limitless lifespan. Okay, putting your finger on that thing ain't easy. It must exist. No point in saying nothing is the thing that has limitless lifespan, because that's nothing. There must be something. I cannot say I am not a warrior. To a certain extent I am. I cannot say I've not been distressed. Didn't enjoy it at the time, but with progress, I've learned to enjoy distress as well. Thinking about death is something that Dougie said not long ago. If I think about it, I might be putting it to reality. So should I think about death or not? And if I do, what reality should I manifest? Morbid? For whom? Coming anyway. In the meantime, help as many as you can, in whatever way, capacity, keeping quiet, not keeping quiet, losing the temper, not losing the temper, whatever works, whatever lights their candle, and then move on. I can only agree with one of the greatest philosophers of the Eastern world. You may not have heard of him, his name, Baba Nanak. That life is a sheer experience, it's a joy to be experienced. And not everybody has said that. Yeah, my friends, yes. You want to see them again? No? Okay, I'll give you that. And this thing is only 4 years old. She's from Coventry, where I used to work some years ago. Her mum and dad are in the other room. Lovely little thing. Superb. We may not agree with the philosophies. We may not agree with the whole of the philosophies. The philosophers may not have put the whole of every item that needs to go into the ideology, but they're all there. 9 or 10 of them which are really, really popular currently. And then there's the agnostics, the atheists. It's all good experience. What more do we want? A destiny? Well, aren't we living the destiny? This had to, we knew about this at least 100 years ago now. And for some reason, the collective decision is that we want to experience it. We've had, this is the 6th mass extinction. And this is the only time we are able to record every aspect of it. And if we don't record every aspect of it by living through it, we won't have that experience for the future. And we've got an immense machine to record every split second of it. And then we can talk about it till the next thing that comes along, probably a great big meteorite or something. That's destiny. No getting away from it. I'm complete. Thank you for the question and the time. Much obliged.
I think that fear comes from survival, or the fear not to survive in any kind, socially, physically. And the only thing that is sure is that we will not survive. Why bother? We don't know when, we don't know how. So really avoiding that it happens is like, yeah. So that's the only thing that we can be sure about, that one day it will happen somehow. So I think, I mean, this is like theoretically, because fear doesn't go that way and doesn't think about it. It just happens. But thinking about fear, actually, it's, when you want to say, it might be nonsense in this when it comes to that. In Germany, there is a saying that if I knew tomorrow was doomsday, I would plant a tree. That came up when Alex was speaking. So might look in vain, and at the same time, there is something to it to do that. And Alex, keep safe, please, in all. Yeah.
Alex, my wife and I have some dear friends in Australia who the fire came within, I think it was 300 feet of their place. And they had all these resources fighting it back that managed to save their house. And she sent a picture of the before and after of the view in that direction. And it's literally from, green and verdant and alive to this just bleak gray post, looked like a war. Just this black gray. desolate landscape. It's really terrible, just terrible. So, you know, do keep safe, please.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi, I'm outside, so I'm actually on a beautiful lake that I could show you for a minute, but I have no desire to be on camera at the moment, but I did want to check in and say hello to you guys. Hold on. Can you see how beautiful?
Wow.
Gorgeous. Let's see if I turn the video off. But so what are you guys talking about?
You, Lynn, why you're not on here with us?
Say it again.
We were talking about you and how Stacy doesn't come on and visit us to talk to us anymore.
I was actually watching a systems video that Jaswinder, you had put a love emoji, so I watched that for the past. I was listening to that as I was walking the dog, and it just made me, gave me more questions. So if I could just ask you, I don't know if I'm interrupting anything, but am I interrupting anything? Okay.
Feel free.
Okay. Is there like any work that specifically talks about different thinking styles? Not necessarily like, I've looked up real quickly and, I see they use words like concrete thinkers, but is there any work out there that's more specific about how people really think? Because I think that would be so useful in putting together groups of people that work together. In terms of being able to mix them, but also have people there that think both ways.
This is something that's been disturbing my way of thinking as well for some decades now. There is a huge discrepancy in our education systems, just like our monetary system, in that we have very poor people educationally and very rich people educationally and in between. And there are layers upon layers of strata of classes of educational people, and they very rarely meet. I'm a rarity in that I've had the privilege of working from the bottom up, and I can relate with people from professors down to people who are bilingual and don't even speak English as a language, and only understand smidgens of it. So it's also because of the lack of education, there's a lack of understanding. And the only way you can put anything into people who are much less educated is to just repeat some things and hope it will stick.
Well, can I jump in there for a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there for a minute and say that I've met people that have advanced degrees.
Yeah.
And compared to people that have very little education, I found the people with less education to be better thinkers. When provided with information, they were better able to put the pieces together. So I don't think it's just a question of how educated you are. And I guess that's my point.
I'm getting to the point where I genuinely believe that some other people have written about that the generalists are better equipped. And I tend to agree, not because I'm a generalist, but that's what the empirical evidence is saying. A specialist is excellent. But when a specialist can't get the toast out of a toaster and it's still on and starts pushing a fork into it, you kind of wonder, well, where's the general common sense? And that's what's lacking all over. And we don't share the general common sense. And if we don't use the correct phraseology, it won't go into, won't deliver to the strata we want to deliver it to. last item on that is, if we do not bring the poor up to speed, they cannot engage. And that is the real crux of the matter. Poor, in all aspects of poorness, they have to be brought up to speed. And the current global thinking of the ruling classes, last item, I do apologize, it seems to me is that those who are poor and cannot engage, well, sacrifice them. That's the criteria of this what's the word?
Autocratic.
No, austerity. It's the teeth, you see. I can't say it, sir. I must get some teeth soon. Austerity. And it's not something that wasn't planned. The present Conservative government here and in the UK planned this in the early 90s, mid 90s. And those papers are available, books are available. Complete.
I tend to agree with Stacey, and I think the point that she's making is that people who don't have an education don't appear to be intelligent because they don't. Now, this wasn't the point that you were making, Stacey, but what I understood you to be saying was that you don't need an education to be bright, to be intelligent.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that if you don't have an education, then you don't know how to, you feel humiliated, you feel subservient because you're not using maybe the same language, or you don't have the confidence in your own ability. And I think that's something which could be taught right from the word go, that people could have more confidence in their own initiative, in using their own mind, rather than this feeling that they have to be measured according to some exam as to whether they are intelligent or not, you know, whether they meet the criterion, whether they've remembered enough. There are people who are intelligent, you know, who maybe don't know any of the stuff that they can be measured by. So it's a different approach to education. And I think self-directed education, which is basically what this comes down to, is exploring the possibilities of people finding their own way of manifesting their intelligence, rather than having to do it in a way which is recognized and approved by society in general.
If you can't engage with general society, then it leads to a lot of frustration. Even if you are educated and you're a specialist and you can't engage, it's frustrating. And I use the word common sense, in that if we don't have the common sense and the common decency to engage and listen and try and understand, there'll be more frustration. If you're a highly qualified, for argument's sake, chartered accountant, and it's a sheer academic profession, and all you do every day is talk about figures and how to manipulate your business and how to make more money and how to avoid paying tax. And you're dealing with people of the same ilk at high levels. They very rarely see people on the street level. They don't use public transport. They drive very expensive cars. And they have private airplanes and things. They have no idea, but they consider themselves superior because they are running the world. So people at the bottom who don't know how to fill in an application form or how to go to a building society or to a bank and talk about for argument's sake, taking out the mortgage and what the procedure is and how it works, that's frustrating. And when they take an interpreter along, like me, and then it's interpreted to them, yes, they feel inferior, and yes, they have to go through it. And even to see a doctor for something like childbirth and the after effects of childbirth, it's frustrating. If they can't find a female to go with them, then they have to take a male. So all these things, yes, they're intelligent. Yes, I'm intelligent. But if I were to talk with a professor and their use of languages and their use of very big, long words, and they're trying to be as precise and concise, and then at the same time they can open it up, really open, you can come in. If people engage with them, like me, and I don't use that language, they tend to move away because I'm inferior. So there are levels of frustration,
like
there are
wind
levels
on
of education. It's no good just saying we're all equal unless we demonstrate it.
Chaz, I want to break in because Alex raised his hand and Gertrude was looking like she wanted to chime in, and Anna raised her hand. So, Alex, you're muted, Al.
Just on that subject, I'll just run quickly and let the others join in. It's generalist is not an expert, but some of them have a higher IQ than others. And I started the ego trip now, so I can talk about myself for a second. I became a generalist due to a lack of education and many different jobs. So a jack of all trades, master of none. And that's the definition of a generalist, I think, in some cases. But those professionals who spend their life studying microbes wouldn't know what to do when their teenage daughter had a fit or a relationship difficulty. They just haven't got any expertise in that area because they specialise, like as Jas Winder was finding out. And so it's one of those things, we have to deal with it. I love art. I love people who can combine their artistic abilities with their IQ and come up with brilliant things. So I'm always watching out for things like that. And one of them,
I think we lost Alex.
Was it something I said?
No.
Oh, good.
Gertrude, do you want to go until he can come back?
Well, there he is.
He is back. Alex, we lost you for a minute. Were you done?
yeah, I'm done. I've just got a faulty cable.
Okay. Gertrude?
I have many different layers of thoughts to that, what Stacy asked. In appreciative inquiry, we say, don't do anything about me without me. So I think that people like in a village somewhere remote, they have a practical intelligence to deal with their own stuff. And when I come there and say, I'm the expert and you have to do this and that, they would just, either obey because it's normal to obey the experts, or they would laugh because I'm not practical enough and I don't really know their world. So I think there is a IQ thing of intelligence, but I also think that there is the expertise of my own life and experience, which can be limited, sure, but better than somebody else. And so I think it's not so easy to to answer the question that Stacy put, because there are so many different things. It's like the four, like I'm more the body intelligence type, or I'm more the emotional type, or so, these four. And then I think I already talked about deterministic screen, what Jasmina was referring to. How many languages do I know? Not languages in terms of countries, but specific languages of a surgeon, of a mathematician, of, and how much do I understand those worlds because I have learned their language. And I think generalists, they might not dig deep enough for some people, but they have learned a lot of languages around them in different areas. Like, I mean, my studies, we were at 12 different faculties to learn when I learned nutrition and home economics. So I never could do this specific laboratory experiment that goes deep, 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 deep. But I understand quite a bit of chemistry. I understand quite a bit of biology. I understand quite a bit of economics and psychology. So this is like, who are the bridge builders? And what Stacy said, we need some people that really dig deep holes to find the specific thing of that, and for maybe a new drug or so. But they need bridge builders to bring that into the normal world and to make it accessible for other people. And there's another layer for me that I got when people get out of school early. Like when I was working in the nursing home, I had people from 10 different countries, and some only had 3 years of school. It doesn't mean they were not intelligent, but they were like, how I see it, it is. So there were a lot of fights because somebody was thinking, okay, this is how I see it, and that's the reality. And so I think one of these layers is also, how far can I step out and have a look at what's happening? Can I have another perspective than just my own? And I think that's also, I don't know if that's a little bit scattered all over, but this is what comes to me. They're so different layers and so different ways of looking at it that I couldn't say, okay, that's it. Or learning is such a different animal when you look from this angle or from that angle. So, Stacy.
Actually,
Sorry if I was...
welcome, Amanda. And Anna, you had your hand raised.
Hi, Amanda.
Yeah,
Hello.
I was, hi, Amanda. I was going to respond to what Jazz was talking about, because he was talking about being a bridge builder, actually. Being a bridge builder between people who can't really connect, engage to the system. So he's trying to be a bridge for them. That was how I understood you, Jazz, to come into the system. And so what he experiences with them is the frustration that they feel that the system is so geared almost against them, because it's not really open to people who don't have the sort of education that he's talking about. And what I would say about that, Jazz, is that yes, it is true that people get frustrated, but I think we need to look on this situation as that it's the society that's at fault, not the people who don't.
The system is rigged. The systems all over the globe are rigged, and we know who rigged them, and they're still doing it today, and they're not even aware. They're becoming aware. It's going to slap everybody in the face, and the better educated we are, and the better we mingle with each other, the better we will be. Hello, Amanda. Nice to see you. We've got 3 females and 3 males. Whippy!
So I just want to bring it back because I actually heard Stacy's comment differently, and Stacy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. What I heard you ask was whether there was a categorization or framework that existed that sort of may define the differences between how people think. So when they come together, you could sort of do better pattern matching of different types of thinkers in service to creating more generative and productive collaboration, almost sort of more of a metacognition question than the dip into disparities of education or disparities of all of these other things. And but I want to bring it full circle back to you. Your mic is a little bit noisy, so I unmuted while everybody was doing their contributions, but I'm going to unmute you now so that you can respond.
Okay. Yes, Doug, you heard my question correctly, but everything that was said after is also underneath that question. So there's a lot of different directions, and that would be the starting point of it.
Is there anything specific at the moment, Stacy?
If I'm going to be really honest, while I was muted, my friend came in, so I was in and out of conversations, and I've been waiting for the opportunity to say, guys, I'm sorry, I have to get off now. So what I'll do is I'm going to rewatch. I do have a lot to say on this topic, so I want to give it my full attention. Jaswinder, I definitely want to pick up where we were. Oh, the one thing I do remember, as you were talking, I was also thinking, I think Anna, you were talking about feeling, whatever it was. I was thinking how this also played into many women, not all women, but many women. And those were the reasons behind why they have classrooms just for women. And I remember thinking to myself, when I was young, they divided you by, how good of a student you were. So the best students were in one spot and, went like that. And I was thinking, if instead of dividing by what they perceived was potential, a potential intelligence or potential to learn, people were divided by more like personality types and how comfortable they were in those situations, which kind of ties to Barry Court's work on cognition and on emotions and cognition. So I'm just going to leave you with a whole bunch of dots, and you guys can have fun, and I look forward to listening to it, and I will jump in on the comments thread and hopefully see you next week. And thank you for letting me join, even if it's for a short time. Bye-bye.
Colin, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of saying something. Actually, I think we are here in some sort of a resonance experiment together. So we have been speaking a long time, and many of you much more than I did. But the resonance to understand each other is growing throughout, I think it's now 2 years or even more. So this is one. And then there's something like intuition that you sometimes really know, whether it's online or offline, you just know what the resonance is saying. The only point that I have problems with is that sometimes the resonance is so good, but the behavior is not aligned with what resonance says, because we're all stuck in these old paradigms things that we're still in. So for me, I need to sort of check how far about somebody is in stripping down the old thing, and what they're actually into, and if they are, you know, putting the action where the words are. And so it's more like fine-tuning. It's not like the resonance that I get would be wrong. I can do that actually within 5 minutes. I don't need an instrument for it. I just sense it. And sometimes I need to go sense a second time, or, you know, that can happen. I think we are perfect tools ourselves, as we are. We have a lot of senses that can do that. But then, and it's really interesting also, this morning I was writing something like, the way we used to manipulate information, including how we see each other, has been so deeply ingrained in our society. And some people still think they can linger on with that. But at some point, you know, you just open up, and then other phases start. And well, we don't really get the process yet, I think, that we're in. And this makes it also difficult to exchange where we are. I don't say for everyone the same also, but to let go of all these things, yeah, we're all at different stages of it.
Well, if I were to jump in there, you have the makings of a masterclass there, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying, if we go back to the Garden of Eden, and the first self-consciousness awareness of being naked, it's attributed to Adam, but in reality, it probably was Eve who first became aware of being naked, and it would have been children who would have made her aware of that. But nevertheless, you have the beginnings there of a self-consciousness as opposed to a general consciousness. From there to here, where we can meet and we can talk at a fairly high level of accuracy and honesty, but there are still topics and subjects we will not touch because we don't want to cause a controversy. And in the background, we have this one overriding rule: let's be nice to each other. Let's not upset each other. Let's not get angry, because then we got people saying, well, I don't want to come to this meeting because you're too rude, you're too honest, and you're upsetting me, and I don't want to talk about these things the way you do. So unless we overcome those objections, we are not going to go further, regardless of the education level. I'm complete.
I have a weird thing to bring in. I have this telepathical bond, which is amazing with someone, and we're totally not aligned on anything else. It's seemingly not true, but we're totally like, we could feel the same angle of things, but we really have to do a lot of bridging. And it's like, how do you say that in Dutch? We would say, he's hanging on my back, you know, and I don't get rid of him. It's just because we have this bond, we better deal with it. And it's not a matter that we don't want to, because sometimes we don't understand each other. It's just, we're hanging in there. So there's a possibility to do that too, even if you don't like some people you just love, even if they're difficult.
I need to mention that there was some primitive tribes that were still living in a state of nakedness long after the Garden of Eden. And, you know, we have hair on our head. Part of the reason we have hair I think, is not just environmentally, it's to make ourselves attractive to the opposite sex. This is a part of procreation. It's nature. And we have pubic hair. So what's the purpose of pubic hair? Is it a place for the insects to build a nest? No. It's part of the appeal, the attractiveness. It's meant to be displayed. So if we wear clothes for convenience, I mean, clothing started in the cold regions where the temperatures got very low. People use animal skins to cover themselves. So it wasn't just about being aware of being naked. I think it evolved more gradually. Anyway, that's what happens when religion starts getting involved with the story of nature and evolution. We tend to build these stories up, pass them on.
I seriously object to that one. You bring that in as a sort of a derogatory statement. Don't give it a label. It's awareness. It's written in a book. Don't degrade information that is helpful. It's what we are. And it's not in just that book, it's in almost every religious book. Awareness increasing, consciousness increasing to the level where we are today, and it will continue increasing. I think what you think and what I think of what you thought and how I react to that, tremendously good. Pay attention to it, learn from it. I'm complete. And on a lighter note, that's just what I was talking about earlier. If we degrade anything, we do have these long silent pauses. It may be egotistical to degrade something, to say that I know something that you don't. But do you? Do I? Sharing information on a pleasant way is good. I don't mind if it's pleasant or not, as long as I get information. I'm at a slightly higher level. I have tried to make that quite clear without saying it. And I work at it. I seriously work at it. I analyze what I've said. I analyze the response I get. And then I realize that my input has to change for the response to change. If I talk to a 4-year-old like I'm talking here, none of it would get in there. So we have to gauge how we engage with whatever we're engaging with. I'm not getting at you particularly. That applies to me also. Everything I say that applies to somebody else applies to me even more. Otherwise, I'm not as clever as I think I am. And I don't particularly want to be a manipulator. I would rather elicit a response. Then it's genuine and accurate. What are you eating, Amanda?
I'm eating bread. It's just
Well,
fresh
like
bread
cake.
with the hummus. That's it.
Very good.
It's my aperitif before meal.
My doctor told me to eat more bread when I had constipation. He said, eat more bread, get more fiber in your diet, exercise your intestines. So that's why I did it. But getting back to that myth and mythology and superstition, that doesn't appeal to me, to make up stories about things we want to explain to children. I think I'd rather have them reading the National Geographic. Over.
Well, when you mention, I don't want to make this a two-way conversation. When you mention superstition, unless it's specific, it is of no relevance. People balk at black cats crossing the road. The iron and steel industry was one of my favorite subjects, because this area was one of the one of the areas where the Industrial Revolution took place. And there was a steel works a couple of miles away. I do remember writing that essay. In other words, that came out of that, yes, Anna.
Yeah, I wanted, if you don't mind me cutting in on what you were saying, because I want to go back to what you were saying just before about feeling that you're on a higher level. I think it'd be really good to look at that, for us to look at that as a group and see what it is that you're claiming there, and, you know, have a feel of whether this is something that we would recognize and acknowledge.
Fine. Would you like the
So do
answer
you want
in
to
one
talk
word?
about it?
Or would you
Huh?
like it in one word or a few words or a small précis?
However you want to express it will be fine.
2 words. Total honesty. From my part, to be totally honest with whoever I'm engaging with, and for them to be totally honest. If anybody hides any information, then that becomes a guessing game. That's playing hide and seek. I'm hiding, you have to find me. Men and women play that all their lives, and they call it marriage.
I was asking you specifically about what you said about being on a higher level.
That's my higher level. If you're not going to be totally honest, you can't get that.
So it's your opinion that the rest of us are not totally honest, but you are. Is that what you're saying?
Not my opinion, it's the empirical evidence everybody supplies to each other, that there are certain aspects of conversation where the other person will disengage. Not necessarily in a rude way, not necessarily in a kind way sometimes, but they will disengage. They will walk away, or they will make, like with what Alex said about religion, again. Now, I took an exception to that again, because he has an opinion of something which is not accurate. And he keeps repeating it, spreading misinformation. And that's another thing that we do. If we spread misinformation knowingly or unknowingly or egotistically, whatever the background is, and we're making it grow. We spread something, ideas, whatever, by talking about them, by writing about them. And if they're not conducive to living together nicely, kindly, then why are you spreading them?
We've got a group of naturalists living here in North Queensland, and they live naked. They don't follow religion. They follow their heart's desire. They follow nature and a natural way of life. So, I mean, it's not spreading misinformation. I just think it's looking at the imperative evidence, looking at the culture you live in and where it came from and how it evolved over time. Over.
I have no answer to that one. You've got too many bits of information in there for your own good. And I'm not going to start disseminating every little nuance there. And you're not even talking from personal experience, it's third-hand information. And that is not good either. Somebody else is doing it. Fine, let them come and explain it.
All right, I'm still listening, but I'm just going in the kitchen to get a coffee.
Can I say something on that honesty thing? And about disengagement in general? I feel, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she's in local politics. And this morning I was evaluating what happened, and my friend said, she's disengaging or separating person from speech, person from action, person from, no, anyhow, he had a couple of those things where the disengagement was total, while saying she was engaging with citizens in my hometown. Yeah. And I deal with her for a long time. Together we have done activism, we have done publications, we have done a blog group. She is with me for a long time, and we cherish many of the same viewpoints. And if you would have a tool, then we would, probably we would be similar. But at the point that it really mattered, and there was a breach in human rights in my hometown during, All Year's Eve and a little bit before, she's actually defending something else. And this is something that I think in Europe, and specifically near, well, I don't know, the Second World War, it runs right through our generations, in each and every family. This has really painful grounds. It's not something small that I'm talking about. And so I feel about sometimes honesty can also overrule you. How can I say that? You suddenly melt, or something just strikes your heart and you have no way to go. And sometimes I meet people that feel that, because it just emerges between us. And maybe it's something that I carry or they're already busy with, and then something emerges of that honesty. And sometimes it just stays in part. It doesn't completely wrap up, or we still have to work on it. Well, I think it's a long journey, but I can relate to what Jaswinder is saying, like they're in that way, that we're all on the journey to fully become naked, so to say. Yeah.
There's something about like really reducing this down to being right or being close.
Yeah.
And a teacher of mine was fond of saying, you can be one or the other. You can either be right or you can be close. You can't be both. And the real sort of embedded truth of that, I think, is in order to be close, it involves letting go of the need to be right. It involves letting go of the attachments to beliefs and to fears and to truths that I hold as sacrosanct. And releasing all of that in order to, in service to connection and closeness, get to common ground, get to a shared awareness, understanding, connection. And so, we're in a cultural frame where it promotes adversity, it promotes polarization, it promotes rights and wrongs and judgments and all of that stuff. Because all that's rooted in fear, and the dominant underlying gestalt of it all seems to be fear. But if one can set oneself free and say, I'm not going to live from fear or in fear anymore, then letting go of being right, letting go of protection and defense of what I think, what I believe, becomes pretty easy. And what replaces the competition and fighting is curiosity. That if somebody's share is striking me as different or out of, Amanda, what you were describing to me sounds like what you're seeing in this person is her being out of alignment. Like the two of you are are harmonized in 99%, but all of a sudden you'll hit this or that or whatever, and it's like you're out, you know, she seems to be out of alignment in some
I
way.
was evaluating this morning, and it was more like, and my friend is, he's good, you know. He said, "Look, she still accepts that there are roles that are not a personal thing. So there's in her idea, and I think I agree with him. You can just have a function which is completely separate from you, and you're not responsible. You know, when you're your person, then you can say something else than when you're the councilman." For me, that's, I mean, for me, integrity is that you are inside out, outside in, the same person, also in your political agenda, in your media usage. And that's not how we exercise communication nowadays. We get to learn that we have an external communication and that you have a separate private life that is completely different.
So for the constituency, it's black, but my truth is white.
For example,
And,
but
yeah.
I am really much, you know, experimenting like until bizarre lengths, I would say, that I am who I am. Even if I'm mistaken, then I'm in the mistake, then I'm going through it. You know? And so there's no way to go. And sometimes I choose not to engage in a public debate about things that I'm not capable of doing. But these babbling monsters in politics, they do things that are very dangerous. So now I started to actually warn, like, guys, you can think you can take the same decision as 70 years ago, but at this point in time, it's having far more effect than before. It's not just keeping the same safety in a balanced society. The balance is out. And you're actually distorting it even more than it already is. And that creates fascism. So I was really to the point on, and she was just shocked that I said that. And I understand. So I try to explain and explain and explain again where I came from. So I also feel sometimes you do need to put more attention to what you're saying. Otherwise, it's never being understood. And smothering it over, like we want to be close, so let's not talk about it, is not helping the factual situation for human rights here, where somebody was taken into jail without any, how do you say that? Reading his rights and
due process.
Without any,
due process.
Just because there was a us-them situation created by not being collaborative a priori in the first place. And I feel politics should be about being collaborative in the first place and not about repression as a first choice. I think we've outdated that now already with all our experiments. And if politics is still not on board with that, maybe they need a lesson or 2 or 3 or 5. I think they just need to learn that the world moved on from that. And whether they're still babbling monsters having the us-them thing, it's time to size up, to up the game a bit. So that's what I just, did in the old year's Eve. I was commenting on that thing. I said, guys, you outdated yourself. Please, get a grip. Be you. And then the response was actually, she's not speaking as a councilman there, she's speaking as herself. And I said, she's speaking two totally opposite opinions. Yes, but she's coherent here and there. I said, no, she's not, because her response was not coherent to me. So there's a total distortion between the different fragmentations of her roles in society, and that's spreading out on social media, and we all get disturbed by it. And it's leading to people taken into jail for what? And to even a whole neighborhood being locked off during Old Year's Eve, just because they wanted to guarantee that their repression would work. Otherwise, they would lose it. So they were shielding, themselves against humanity, against citizens. That's not why we vote politics. We vote politics so that they do, as representative, what we voted for. It's not a power game in this way. And if it is, something is really wrong. So this is state violence. It's single-handed state violence. It's not balanced state violence. It's even polarization throughout, and that's just how we start the year. And the party saying that they protect the citizens' rights, mostly, is smothering that over to be having a union and being one, and being more close than far away. But actually, they're creating a far away that is beyond anything I've ever seen. And so these are my dilemmas.
I just noted Gertrude, I think, was trying to
Sorry.
jump in. I
No,
was
no,
trying to jump in, but
I-
I don't need to anymore. I'm extremely impressed by the development here. Anything I say now would be superfluous to requirements. All yours, Gertrude. Sorry for the...
No. I didn't want to interrupt Amanda. I just wanted to make sure.
No, it's good.
And actually, before you spoke, I wanted to raise my hand to ask you more about what you just explained more, because I didn't get it from the first time you shared.
Is it now better, or is there still something?
Yeah, it's a lot better. And I thought it's like schizophrenia.
Yes, it is.
They're two completely different persons with different value systems. So you can split yourself to be this politician or this CEO or and then father or whatever. And I think that I think it's a matter of values. That my values, if I can have a different tone, I can talk a little bit differently because this is one perspective, the political one and the whatever, but being the same person.
Mm-hmm.
So taking the roles can make slight changes to how I behave, what dress I wear, but not in the core who I am.
It is like for many people, it does affect the core a lot. And this is what I bumped into for a long time. This is why I found my way out, actually, because it hurts. And it hurts my intelligence to deal with it like that. Even I think it's mostly not rational.
Yeah. And I think that is the part where, talking about teal or so, that is where wholeness comes in.
Mm-hmm.
When I don't either slice myself or even divert myself from who I am.
But I feel it should be a human right.
Way of being.
And now it's like you have to defend yourself when you have wholeness. Because you're supposed to be split up.
Yeah, I think that's in Ken Wilber's terms, the orange way of being.
I just think it's violent, and many people that are teal and beyond are, having deep trouble with the violence. And even the people that want to contribute to end the violence, they only meet this more violence. It's just like, and when you speak about it, then they're just like, no, I'm the same person, but I have different roles. So, no, I'm not contradicting myself. And no, we have to have an instrument to do that. No, you have to integrate it in you. And when you're not coherent, then you're hurting someone. Then you need to, own that and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, even in the most personal relationship, is also a role. This whole thing is still, well, it's very interesting and painful.
Alex, you raised your hand.
Yeah. When you go to the analyst or the psych, it sometimes gives you a list of words rapidly and asks you to, when he says a word, you say the first thing that comes into your mind. And he writes it all down and analyses that later. Next week when you come back, he says, you're schizophrenic. And you say, no, I'm not. No, I'm not, nor am I. But the thing is, we should do that with the group. We set up a session where we rattle off a list of words to each member and get their replies instantaneously live. And we can see what ticks, it's how your mind ticks by the result. Over.
I'll go back to what Amanda said. Compartmentalizing our mind space, putting different roles in there. This is what I was going to move on to previously. Accuracy is of paramount importance. So if you're going to take on roles, then across those roles of the father, the husband, the uncle, the granddad, etc., the do-gooder in general society, maintaining that role of accuracy, not for the benefit for per se of the protagonist, but for the self. Because whilst we are in a meditative state, which happens every once in a 24-hour period, if we sleep every so often in a 24-hour period, we coagulate that information and we look at where we're going to compartmentalize it to so that they don't mix. Therefore, you have not become one. You're still separating yourself, and that is schizophrenia. When it crosses, it overlaps, and you don't know which role to play at that particular juncture. And if you're not going to be honest with yourself, and you're not storing information accurately, and your responses are still with attachments, then you will continue that process of destruction from the lowest level to the highest level of world wars, because you want something that you value more than anything else. And that might be the freedom of our country is of paramount importance. And we're not giving that up to anybody, but we are going to subjugate others to keep our freedom or our standard of life. So that's where the crux of the matter comes up, is that individually we can go and say, okay, I'm nice and relaxed. I have no gripes with anybody. But as a citizen of the UK, I have gripes with all the other countries who have gripes with me. And I'm willing to uphold this oath I took so many years ago, to uphold this country and its values. Even though its values may have changed, but that oath, I will stand by that oath. So the collective consciousness then comes to bear in that we're not on the same level. Okay, I'm not superior to anybody. I'm not no more intelligent to anybody. It's just that I've spent more time. I've had the time. I've been very fortunate. I've been privileged to have that time to be able to think it out and to read different philosophies and to come to these conclusions. And I'm mighty grateful. Thank you for the time again.
Annie, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, this question of schizophrenia. I appreciate what Amanda is saying about, and what Jazz is saying about being whole, being one, being the same person through and through in different situations, in different contexts. I think there's no doubt that that is what we would like to be. That is what we aim for, because otherwise we experience conflict within ourselves. And like Amanda was saying, it's painful that if I can't be myself in this situation, it's very uncomfortable. But I also feel, I mean, definitely by the time I've got to my age, I choose situations where I feel comfortable and where I can be myself. And I think the older you get, the more you are able to make that. The condition of your engagement is that you feel you can be yourself. But there are still situations. For example, with my sister, with whom I don't see eye to eye, but there is a love there that I want to continue to engage with. I don't feel that I can be my whole self with her. There are probably other situations, I'm just trying to think, but I can't think at the moment, where I wouldn't be my whole self. The reason why I come to these groups is because I do feel I can be my whole self here. That's the attraction of this. But it doesn't feel like it's 100%. It's something that I value and, you know, want to work towards and would encourage everybody to be able to do that. But I know that when I was at school, I felt totally out of place. You know, there were lots of situations during my life where I felt schizophrenic because I wasn't accepted as who I was. And I think that's the experience of a lot of people in society, because society does not, it's exactly what Jazz was saying before. Society doesn't welcome people being themselves. It wants certain roles performed, and it's to do with control most of the time and power over. And those are the roles that people perform and they get paid for. And I wouldn't expect that people feel that they are being themselves when they do it. They probably feel a lot of conflict and a lot of pain, a lot of stress. That's the society that we're living in, and which we are hoping to change and to allow that society to be more welcoming of people as they really are, whole people. Oh.
Alex? You're muted, Al.
I wanted to get together with the other Alex, the schizophrenic, and work out a conflict resolution between the two of us so we can be friendly with each other and get more done. I mean, why not? If there's 3 or 4, the more the merrier. But that's madness. Is that madness, or is that just creative thinking or mind hacking? Okay.
Well, if you look for the other Alex and you subsume into each other, then you are on your way to becoming one, which clarifies your thinking patterns that much better. You're not bumping into the wall every time you want to do something. You're not arguing with each other. And if it's for the general good, that's even better. I will make this very clear. You know, what Anna said and what I'm saying here, you can take your mind, soul, brain combination and set it to do whatever it is you want to do, be that war or be that peace, be that good or evil. It will comply. It is a machine. It has no feelings. You can attach feelings to it and they will be of no importance. It will do what you tell it to do. Be very careful. I'm complete. Nice to see you here, Sam. You've spoiled the ratio now. We've got 4 males and 3 females. But it's still very nice to see you here.
It's still a pretty heavy discussion. Very deep in the.
I could rephrase that. It's deep for some and very light for others, and it's enjoyable for some, and some are finding it painful. Everyone's going through their own experience.
And Josh is somewhere, so we had a fourth man somewhere. Ah, here.
Good morning, Josh.
The morning mist, or even fog.
I went for a walk outside in the early morning when I took my first LSD tablet, and it was really strange, like walking on the clouds, because this fog had rolled in low and you can see above it. And it was, with the early morning sunrise light on this foggy cloud, it was just the most surreal experience of my life, really. It's all due to the LSD, of course. Over.
I can have that here without the LSD. So I'm interjecting here, but I only heard the tail end of Jaswinder's talk. Was this the mind is a horrible master but a wonderful servant theme?
First of all, you have to define what the mind is.
God. It's becoming a real easy discussion now. It's good.
One thing you can say about the mind is that the mind is.
Is what?
Bobby.
He's working overtime.
Doesn't work at all. It's not in there. The mind is external. That's why you can't find it. And it's in two hemispheres as well. And it's got an overlap in the middle. Google it sometime. Lots of pictures, pretty pictures.
I would like to ask a question. I don't know whether we can, but I wonder, how can we deal with this pain of fragmentation when everybody still wants to hold on to roles? How can we ever enter the discussion like, this is painful that we cannot be ourselves?
So I
When we-
believe,
Mhm.
so I believe that the first thing to doing that is dropping the we.
Okay, that's good.
I'm not responsible for a we, I'm responsible for me.
Mhm.
And I am an agent of contribution.
Mhm.
And the only thing I have control over is me
Mhm.
and what I do with my time and attention and what I contribute by my words, by my actions, by my presence, by my participation, engagement.
So how do
So-
you?
So within that frame of reference, where I ended up
Mhm.
was to attempt to be as generatively contributive to others, to the whole, with what I say, what I do with my time and attention as I can be. Aligned and mediated by values. So it's human being centered and values centered. Those are sort of the source, the wellspring.
I get that.
And within the context of that, stuff is either emergent and born out of from a again, human-centered, value-centered. So through my experiential lens, what I generate, what I contribute, is either emergent and born out of fear or it's born out of love. If it's born out of my own beliefs, my own fears, my own scarcity, my own anxieties, my own whatever, generally my contribution is going to be adding to the problem, not the solution.
But you're now going in a psychological
If
mode.
it originates,
It's
if it's originates and born and is born out of love and abundant, and
contradicting yourself, Doug.
hold on, let me finish, because I can't contradict what I haven't finished saying.
Okay.
Okay. So if it originates from and is born out of love and abundance, which is a belief, then generally it's going to be a positive value contribution add to the world. And I keep it that simple. I don't think it's more complicated than that.
It's much simpler than that. By
Yeah,
just by being here.
Hold on, Jeff. Hold on. So, if I look out my window and I am confronting things out of alignment, I'm confronting a world saturated in and originating out of fear. I'm looking at the consequences of that, which is horrendous. I connect to that state, that reality, from a place of empathy. Not sympathy, empathy. And that flows into and also informs what I do, what I say, what I engage with, what I contribute to the world. And that's sort of the whole system. That's as complicated as it gets for me.
What do you do when somebody wants you to fragment yourself? When it's a demand, right? When you're not,
can you give me an example?
I don't know, but it's somewhat luxurious to, determine your own fate, but at some point it's also not for some. For some, it's no other option than to do so, and it gives a lot of pressure. But let's say when you would be in an average situation that you encounter fragmentation throughout the day, for example, in your workplace, for example, on any institution you encounter, well, you can imagine per day, you can have many fragmented situations that you're required to fragment yourself in.
I see that concept. I don't get that concept. I don't get the concept of fragmenting me. I can be in lots of dysfunctional situations, but I'm me.
Yeah.
There's no fragmentation of me or confusion about who I am.
It has a price.
And what?
It has a price when you're you.
A price?
Yeah.
In what way?
How do you say? If you would be required to exactly function conform a certain role that other people think they have to attribute to you, so not to see you as you, but as your role, or as your, certain status or something, so people project things on you.
Well, I look at it through sort of the opposite. I turn that telescope around, which is I train people how to treat me. I literally get what I ask for. So if people are relating to me in a fucked up way, somehow I'm responsible for that.
But I want to broaden the scope a bit. We have a lot of people that just go to their jobs. They are husband or wife. They go to the healthcare, they have to address 10-minute conversation about nothing. And, you know, they're being run by the matrix throughout the day, and they do not even have time to think for 5 minutes, if they have.
Understood.
And so this is my question about, and yes, we can drop the we, but as long as everybody's keeping to roles and performance in them, how do we enter the moment? Well, some enter by crisis, some enter by happiness, the moment to understand I could be more whole. Something is urgently missing, and it's not only me.
You mean
It's more than me.
how can we catalyze that awakening is the question I'm
Yes.
hearing. And I see that being about in my movement through the world
Mhm.
and how I choose to walk in the world by living that. So it's asking people, and it's listening to people where in their lives they don't have anybody asking for their voice, and they don't have anybody listening to their responses. Like, for the most part, that's 99% of what I have been experiencing my life turning
I
to.
gather my question is also about the systems we're in. So it's not only, yes, we can be ourselves and we can make it emergent and we can inspire and spark. That we can do. That's a psychological thing, and it's just emerging. As soon as you melt and you break down the fragmentation slowly, then other people get the sparks, whether they like it or not. When they like you,
They connect.
Sparks. And we had this phrase in NewMap, you will be synergized or not. Either you synergize or you'll disappear probably.
Yeah.
It's funny. So that system, it works. I do understand that. But then there is something mechanical in our doings, in all of our doings and in our societal doing, that is fragmenting throughout.
The system is designed to keep us isolated, keep us alienated, keep us disconnected.
And
but
how
each
about
one of us is an unlimitedly powerful agent.
I don't want to be isolated. How about saying, wait a minute, you're fragmenting me. I'm not schizophrenic. You are. Stop doing that. How about initiating some sort of right to do that? You know, how do we get the healthy awareness that it's actually not strange to want wholeness?
Nobody fragments you.
It does.
Amanda, nobody fragments you. It's you who have to
No, that's not true. That's
find
not true.
out
That's
for
not
yourself who you are.
It's not true. You're making it a psychological thing, but in society, if I am to be myself everywhere, I can reckon fierce, fierce resistance, and not just a little. And that comes from many roles that I could have.
Yeah, there is resistance. There is. And for me, you know, it's like, well, what happened to Jesus? He was himself and he got crucified. Are you prepared to be crucified?
Not at all.
That's really what it amounts to.
Not at all. But I had a long discussion with the Orthodox about that. I'm punishing him about martyrdom. I'm finding that all out.
So then you have to make adjustments in your behavior so that you don't upset people. But that doesn't mean that you change inside. You make adjustments in your behavior, but that isn't
too many adjustments forever.
Doesn't mean that you're not whole.
No, it's too many adjustments, and I really feel upset about the price it has cost in my life.
I agree.
To do
I
that.
Totally agree.
I'm
yeah.
very upset with it, and I'm
feel
at the
upset
verge
too.
of actually just, you know, presenting the bill everywhere. Just when people still ignore that, then I'm just about to open that up nearly, and that takes a long time. But I'm just like, why are we still not talking about this? Why is everybody doing as if it doesn't exist? I don't understand. It's killing your intelligence. It's killing your feelings. It's killing your daily life.
It's killing the planet.
Why can't we talk about it? I don't understand. I just don't get it.
I agree.
Don't we do that right now?
That's the point.
Oh.
I heard there was a fellow on the he was explaining what happens to the brain when there's alcohol in the bloodstream. And he said that the brain detects the alcohol in the bloodstream and then it switches into survival mode. It's an emergency situation because alcohol is a flammable substance, you know. It pickles the cells. And the brain starts to divert resources for survival. It diverts resources to the critical areas like the heartbeat and breathing, and it takes those resources from the least required areas of your brain, and they just happen to be the areas where you process higher thought patterns. And that explains why drunk people lose their inhibitions and don't think as clearly as they do when they haven't had a drink. And like a cocaine addict can do the work of 10 people when they've had a hit of cocaine, when in fact they're causing more harm than good, and quite often sometimes. But in the Hollywood movie industry, they're very well cared for and looked after because they produce. They keep working hard. And the thing about alcohol is that it's one of the worst things you can put inside your body, I think, even though some creative people have used it to specifically reduce their inhibitions and allow them to create works of art they wouldn't have created when they were sober. Over.
Josh, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I'm just listening to the conversation. It's a wonderful conversation this morning, and I feel what Joss Winder was saying about higher levels, and then I'm listening to Amanda about how to deal with systems that don't feel holistic, and what our relative comparison to make these type of statements and feel these feelings and know what love is or what fear is or what disconnection is or what bonding is. And I feel like that's what we're here to figure these things out. And the difference, for me at least, is the difference between wisdom and knowledge. And knowledge is knowing what to say, and wisdom is knowing when to say it. And in every interaction, you feel like you're supposed to say something, but having the wisdom to know what to say at that moment in time is how you deal with a world that's unfree. And in the words of Albert Camus, a great philosopher, the only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. And like you said, Anna, are you willing to be rebellious at that moment in time and be completely yourself? And if so, then you can be you. And if you're wise enough to know when to be you, and you can completely be you and say nothing. And with that, I'm complete. Thank you guys for a great conversation.
Thank you, Josh. I need to leave at the moment, and thanks everybody for today.
Yeah, we are past top of the hour, so more comments or closing comments.
Yeah, I have to go too, and I would like to start with, for me, Amanda, there are two things. One is that I have to do things, or I think I have to do things that are not according to my values and who I am really, who I am. And do fire people because of the data and whatever that might be. And the other one is have different roles. And I think per se that is not a bad thing. Like in holacracy, you have different roles, and it's not about your personal life, but about the purpose of the business. But that has to be aligned with yourself, because otherwise you wouldn't be at the right place. So having different roles, not my problem, but feeling like having to do things that are not aligned with myself. So that
This is the thing.
Yeah.
In world 2, where everybody finds its own box, you say, if you cannot align, you're not in the right place. So find another place so then you can be you somewhere else. But we're actually not allowing each other to be ourselves where we are, no matter what. So I find this increasingly, no, I'm not only finding this increasingly, I find this impossible. I find this impossible to be maintaining this. I really require the right to be ourselves and be our unfragmented selves everywhere. And that, it's a huge
what
thing.
I wanted to say, but you can take different roles. One is maybe IT and one is this and that. So it's not the content of what I do, but if I can be myself in that.
No, I cannot.
Okay.
With me, that's totally mingled. There's no more separation in those fields either. It's becoming differently. I don't know, but I don't want to, we're on the top of the hour, so we're closing, but maybe next time we can explore it a bit more.
But yeah, I would be very interested in what you specifically mean.
Yeah.
Because it's not the roles per se, it's something else. There's something that lets you feel.
No, I feel I cannot be me in roles.
Okay.
Because it's required that I'm not me in roles. And I really feel that. And I feel that for a long time. So it has actually transformed me, and it has brought me to a consciousness shift that I cannot. And I can less and less, and even no longer.
Talk about that. Maybe what I think of roles is different than what you think.
That could be.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Something completely different. Sorry, but I had to fit it somewhere. I said last year, it's been last year, that I wanted to start a Friday experiment somehow, which is not recorded, which invites people who want to join, and to work on the trigger points that we have. So personal unblocking, so to say. And I just want to start it and look how it's going. So whoever, even if it's one person, it could be very valuable. And I would like to, what I need is a Zoom. That I can come in and have that offered. And so, since you're the only one, Doug,
I can help with that. I can help with that. We can put that together.
I'd love to contribute and take part, maybe.
Yeah, so I just start to do the work that I've been doing for the last year, and do it just for the community, and then see what comes out of that and how people react to it. And maybe, I don't know, we'll see. And I thought I might start this Friday.
Good.
Okay.
Why not?
So
you and I will talk. We should talk offline and figure out the moving parts to make it happen, stand it up, and send out notice.
Yeah, and then write a post that everybody's in.
Great.
That links into what I was going to say about the letting go and being able to be freely who I really am in any situation, and that is restraint. It's like visiting a new town, a new culture, where you've got to try and fit in somehow. Otherwise, all the people are going to say, look at who's this crazy dude acting like that.
I didn't understand the last part of what you were saying.
I'm just talking about restraint.
What do you mean with restraint?
If you don't have that restraint in your approach, they'll put a restraint on you. You know what I mean?
By restraint? What kind of restraint?
You can let yourself go to a certain extent in a given situation. when you come to a specific room where people are behaving in a specific manner, your restraint enables you to fit in and behave in the same manner, similar manner, where it's accepted, and you learn from the group. You go away with takeaways. But if you don't show that restraint, you cause a backlash, a negative reaction, and you could leave that conversation with a negative impression from the others.
Maybe somebody can translate what Alex said, because I don't understand what it
It's it's
Friday
opening up and letting go, right? Is becoming yourself and being open, totally, honestly, 100% yourself, and reacting with others as if you're that person you know, you feel, and you love. But if you don't show restraint in those situations, people are going to think you're odd.
Restraint, Gertrude, is a way of withholding some
Control.
discipline, you're controlling your expression, perhaps, or being
To restrain literally means to hold back.
hold back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
know that word, but I didn't understand what Alex was was referring to after I said what I am going to do.
Oh, I don't think it was related.
It was related to
Then
what?
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, but
I think he was making a closing contribution that had nothing to do with yours.
So
talking about what Amanda
didn't
was saying.
understand it either, but it was not a comment about what I was. Okay, good.
Nothing to do with the
I'd like to
Friday
thank
experiment.
Alex, for your
But then again, we don't have to
So-
be restrained if it's not recorded. We can lift that restraint if it's not recorded and be ourselves.
Yeah, I thought this is very crucial to that people can feel safe. That's my
Okay.
I'd like to thank Alex for the new meaning of the word restraint, because I have been pivoting that word for a long time with my friend who can restrain himself very much. But now I realize that we demand it from each other in social situations such a lot. And yes, it's a skill, certainly. But it also signifies something when we need restraint all the time.
Or not.
Yeah, well, but some to function well. So that's interesting. And so this is a trigger that is in my mind. Thank you, Alex, for notifying me.
Closing.
I'm complete, and I wish
Okay.
you a wonderful week. And Doug,
We'll talk.
And perhaps a closing comment, Doug, then
Yeah.
I'm just wrapping that up immediately. It's greatly helpful, this conversation, because not only my own battle with it and my own, systems thing that I want to do about it, but also, there's so many situations I meet this in, and people I talk to that want to let go of that slowly, gradually, and they're halfway. So I find this extremely helpful to share this. So thank you.
Well, and Amanda, I'd be happy to do one-on-one with you if of interest.
Yes.
To unpack what you shared a little bit.
That's good.
You might be surprised.
Yeah. I like to become surprised. So let's do that. When would you like to do that?
We'll figure it out. Let's do that. We'll coordinate that offline.
Yeah, that's good.
Do we have some closings, Jazz? Colin?
Yeah, we've had a good conversation. We've come a little bit forward. We're doing a lot of zigzagging and reclaiming our stance as to where the individual wants to be, and the individual of the Western world, UK, and the United States in particular, the rugged I did it business, needs exploring much, much further, much more succinctly, dissecting even. I think that needs a good session, good hard session. I look forward to it. I'm complete.
Colin, any closing for you?
Yeah, I've had a lot of things that I could have, but I'm kind of on the move, mobile today, and I just took the listening route. But again, um, I guess I beat the same drum a lot, and I'm thinking that when it comes down to generalizations and specialization and things, it comes down to, again, context. What context you're in, what's the solution space you're actually wrapping yourself around, if not everything. Sometimes people say they want to work on the whole, and all of us or none of us kind of the thing. And then, but within that whole, there's ways of subdividing responsibilities and capabilities, and which of those conversations you're having matters to understanding what's actually being said. And another thing that struck me was the first one was context, which I always mention, and the other one was, when Doug, when you were going on about the different people and the way that you approach things, you were talking about it early on, and then I think about 20 minutes ago you were talking about it again. Yeah. It reminds me of those people adapters I keep harping about, as opposed to being here to research technology. I'm here to research this people adapter component, and context is even. Context and solution space are coming to the top of the mix. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Sam, I know you were sort of in and out. If you want to contribute a closing.
I have no context. I have many questions based on the snippets that I heard, but I'll leave them questions for now. I don't want to be presumptuous.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I love today. We sort of wandered into a lot of really interesting eddies and pools and rapids, and it was a rich one for me, and I really appreciate all of you making that happen and being here. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday, Alex, your Monday. And Alex, stay safe from fires. I'll be thinking with you through all of that. And with that, we have a wrap.
Thank you. Wonderful. I love the mist, Josh.
It's a great environment to do Tai Chi in, Josh.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was doing through the whole conversation. It's very cold though.
Maybe
The
next.
moisture.
Yeah. Maybe I should be there.
I used to walk my daughter to school every morning, and then I would come back on the way back and stop at a park and do Tai Chi. And I found that I was able to do it down to 34 or 35 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 1 or 2 degrees centigrade, if I could actually keep moving and still stay fairly loose. And in fact, after about 4 or 5 reps, I had to take my sweatshirt off, even at that temperature, when I was doing Tai Chi.
That's awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, the waking up of the kidneys, that first part of Tai Chi, when you're hitting the back of your kidneys, it's sometimes you have to do a couple more to wake up the blood flow and get your body heat. So I noticed sometimes it's just a longer warm up depending on the cold, but yeah, I don't like to do it anything below that temperature either. I just find it to stiffen me up and not loosen me up. So I agree. And here comes the sun. I see it trying to peek through the clouds. So being on a mountain, it's not necessarily fog. We're actually in a cloud, where the cloud is,
it's wonderful.
If you're below the mountain, you look up, you just see the clouds, and we're in the clouds. So
you're in.
It's like being in heaven. I love that. You probably get it more frequently than me, but I experience that here on the island, probably maybe about 10 to 20 days a year. is feeling like I'm either in the clouds or above the clouds. Above the clouds happens probably about half that time.
Are you at sea level? Where are you? What's your?
I'm 300 feet above the water. So even at
Oh,
300 feet
no.
above the water, sometimes the clouds are sitting right on the water and below 300 feet.
That's a fantastic place to be 300 feet above the water. That's so cool.
I'm actually looking down at a dead tree where an eagle perches. There's a family of 4 or 5 eagles that perch there all the time in the winter. And that's where they look down to see, you know, what fish they're going to go dive bomb and go eat later on. So it's a
Do you get to
fascinating
watch
place to
them?
observe eagles. Sorry, I
Are
didn't
you
hear that.
saying you actually watch them dive down, and do they bring the prey back up to that spot?
Actually, once they get the prey, they usually go to a leafier tree that's higher up. But they use that one on which to do their lookout, strangely.
Ah, yeah. The dog here just chased a hawk yesterday. I saw her. Usually, when she runs after the squirrels, she runs in a straight line. And she was running and jumping and running and jumping. And I was like, what is she doing? And I looked up and she was chasing a hawk in the sky. So it was interesting to see that she actually, in her mind, thought she could somehow fly up and get the hawk. But yeah, they don't want any part of her. That's been a good thing.
Those talons are quite long and sharp and strong.
Oh yeah.
There's island
Yeah.
lore about trees that have been felled, where then they find eagles' nests with, like, say, 10 or 12 or 14 cat's collars in them.
Yeah, that's about the right size for a big eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to confess, I came back because I heard the tail end of Jaswinder, your little share about the mind and being master/servant. So I knew I didn't come in for the whole of that, but I was curious to see what the follow-on to that was.
Follow on to that was that our erstwhile Doug Brickbart rescinded. I was under the distinct impression that we were making some progress in opening up the mind, and he's gone back into his shell that he will only speak from the perpendicular pronoun, and that's what he is. And Amanda took an exception to that, and so did I, and that we are not all perpendicular pronouns, that we do interact and we are part and parcel of society and vice versa. We are not islands on our own. It seems to me, listening to what he said again, I don't know how many times around he said the same dialogue, the same iterance, that it has to start from the bottom up, really, that he wasn't born with a language. He had no idea where he was being born, and everything inside his head has been put in there, and he's just responding to the stimuli outside of him. He's not responding on his own. He's not sitting on a mountain being a yogi. And we all interact. We are a we. We're not an I. You might well say, okay, I want to take responsibility for all my actions. But then there are certain reactions for which I cannot take responsibility because they were induced. And you could argue, well, if they're induced, then you weren't being you. But that induction led me, for argument's sake, to lose my temper to make a point. So if I couldn't lose my temper, it wouldn't exist. That is a we. So there are certain items there that don't match up. They are contradictory. But in his mind, he's compartmentalized them and he's reacting accordingly. And the American ruggedness of the Wild West that has been put into us by the likes of John Wayne and Kirk Douglas, etc., We did it on our own. I went out into the Wild West and conquered it all by myself. Yeah, well, that impression still stands in a lot of people's minds. We are moving forward, but it's at a constrained rate, and there is a certain amount of restriction in place. I do agree, I'm restricted. If I were to be totally honest, I could be mislabeled. He's egotistical. Well, yeah, probably am to a certain extent. But does intention count or doesn't it count? I'm also a sexual animal, and we never talk about that. Does that count or doesn't that count? Have we explored our sexuality? No. Why? Because we don't want to upset each other. And that rule of let's be nice to each other is probably the most destructive rule in the polyverse. And we can hide there like a little goldfish. Yeah, I'm going to go hide there. You can't find, even if you do find me there, I got a shield, electromagnetic shield. You can't poke at me anymore. And we're not being honest. I must admit, in the last 4,000, 5,000 years, our consciousness, self-consciousness, has come a long way, especially in the last 75 years, and we're much more open because we have a common vocabulary with common words which are either rude or plain, or they're very esoteric and very nice to use, and we can get our meaning across without being personal. That's another thing. Do not be personal. But if you go to the doctor, you have to be personal. And if I'm your interpreter, you still have to be personal, instead of shying away from the problem. So there are barriers in society that society has put there for our benefit so that we get along. And there were rules even as little as 30, 40 years ago. The 5 big subjects you don't talk about: sport, sex, religion, politics, and there was one other. Oh yeah, the self. Don't get personal. And then you can have a nice conversation, have a flow to it. So every Friday evening, you go to the public bar, you down a few beers, you've killed your personal and everybody else's problems and gone home, and the next day, the only thing I've done, speaking personally, I've added a headache to all the problems that I thought I'd solved. So these conversations that we keep repeating, yes, they are doing some good. Yes, we get to a plateau where we have reached probably a slightly higher level than before, slightly a better honesty level. But we rescind, we go back to our fail-safe position and say, that's what I am. You got to accept me as that and not see our own contradictions in that. I'm complete.
So if I may ask, the fact that you describe that as compartmented seems to be supporting the point that Amanda was making about fragmentation.
Absolutely.
Did you guys follow up on that?
She was trying to coax him out of that position and he wouldn't have it. She was being very nice about it too. I think she's listening. She looks like she's listening.
I'm here. How do you mean? Sorry. Call whom out?
Carry on, carry on.
Call whom out, Jaswinder? I'm not completely clear what you're saying.
Coax.
Can you say
Slowly
that?
help to move.
Sorry, I was asking you, Jaswinder. You said I was trying to respond to someone or to
He was responding to Doug Brickbart.
Oh yes, yeah. I wanted it to be somewhat more systemic than psychological, because many of us, we encounter daily situations where it is not only desired but required that we fragment ourselves. And that can be something very simple, like a 10 minutes conversation in a school where you cannot really be fully you, but you're supposed to reflect on the performance of your child in a school. or your work, where you are required to fragment yourself between your professional role and the rest of you, who nobody cares who you are actually, or you as a customer, where you are required to have a satisfactory inquiry and go along with that. But nobody cares if you don't have time for that. So there's all sorts of moments in life daily that are hassling our souls, that are not giving us any freedom to be truly exploring being ourselves. And so this was what I was trying to bring in. And Doc, I'm going to speak with him, but he's not here.
Josh
And
has his
to
hand
make
up.
a more psychological approach, like I solve it this way, but I always want a societal way also. So, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was a great thing. I think Gertrude brought this up, or maybe it was Anna, or both of them. But being in a system is your choice. But how you maneuver when you find yourself in that system, that's the interesting thing. Hello, Tammy. So
As soon
making
as
that
you,
choice is really the hard part. That's
as soon
all
as
I'm
you,
saying is, what's that, Just Wonder?
as soon as you engage in the system and you keep engaging, you're no longer an I. You have become part of the collective, a we.
Yeah, and knowing the we and the rules, I think that's the real artistry of it, is learning their rules, learning their
See
system,
how
and then
simple it
slowly
is?
becoming the
And
cause.
he's denying that.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
understand either.
I don't think he's denying that. I think he has a different perspective.
That's
The
pretty
I
nice.
and the we. Everyone. Well, comes down to collaborology, and what we're always talking about here as a collaboration group is the I and the we is an art form to dance on. In my opinion, it's this way, but in a group opinion, it's this way. In my opinion, it's this way, but I want to create a system this way. It's a dance. It's an art. It's paint. I don't know how many people here have painted collectively as a community, have put a bunch of paintbrushes out, put a canvas out, and started painting together.
I'm
That's
much
the
simpler than that. If you don't keep it simple and you're going to play on semantics, we're going to be playing hide and seek for the next 1,000 years.
I agree. And it's very simple in the end. I mean, it's just about the end of fragmentation. We should just see, wait a minute, what the hell's happening?
I just realized something. Go ahead, Sam.
I'm still curious about your use of the word fragmentation, because I understand, I believe, 80% of the intent behind the use of the word. But if I look at my choices going to the grocery store, I'm not going to be acting like a CTO or VP of engineering at a grocery store. It's unnecessary, right? It's also not going to aid in selecting the right zucchini. And if I go to my kindergarten, I'm not necessarily going to go as the person who fixes dinner for my daughter. I don't need to show up that way if I'm going to a place where it doesn't required. So I'm still thinking that various aspects of ourselves show up in different contexts.
No, but when it's
but I don't think of that as being fragmented. I still see that as being whole.
No, it's fragmented because it's not even being expected of you that you could have other roles. So
no, I completely could introduce those if I meet someone and say, yeah, I'm a CTO at a company.
That's not what I feel. I feel really fragmented. So I'll take it personal then. But I do feel required to be fragmented. And I do feel nobody expects me to have any other part of my role than the role that I'm supposed to bring. Nobody's interested in all the other 128 roles that I also have. Nobody wants to know. Actually, they want me to be anonymous. They just want me to be a part of the machine. They don't want to know I'm a woman. They don't want to know I could have children. They don't want to know I have a life without work. They don't want to know that I'm doing this part of contribution to collaboration. They don't want to know about peer-to-peer. They don't want to know about comments.
But who is this
they don't want
they?
to know about they is each and every situation I'm coming in, each and every one, from the groceries to the yoga mats to the dance floor, to a spiritual adventure that I'm doing, to my holidays, any situation at all. Nobody requires you to be whole.
Moreover, I dare
Nobody
not
cares.
talk with Amanda about these things in the group, lest I be thought a pervert. I would love to have a deep conversation with Amanda, but everybody, you can't do that. We're not here for that.
No, but it's interesting. So it's interesting, and maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but I mean, it needs to be said at some point that it's taboo to say these things, and that most of the time we just, perform. We're not behaving. We are performing conform expectation, and that's it.
Absolutely. And that ain't the way ahead.
I was going to share something with you, Amanda, if that's okay.
Yeah, please do.
I've had that feeling and it's been so painful.
It is.
And I started seeking out different parties, different groups, different people, different festivals, different places.
I know.
And there are some that are more open than others. And I'm saying when there are people that say they don't want to know that, you're speaking to the wrong audience.
I know. No,
and don't try to win over every audience.
I had such bizarre
the people that
audience
don't want to
already.
know.
But I need
Yeah,
more
the people that
bizarre
don't want to
audience.
know don't have to know. Let them stay in their systems. What I'm trying to say is if they're in that system and they're like,
no, I
Amanda, what do
disagree.
you
We
do?
had that conversation a long time ago. You see, Tammy's taking exception to my raised voice, which is good enough. If we keep doing the same thing, ignore them and they'll go away, they multiply.
Yeah.
I didn't even finish what I was
You're
saying.
one of the biggest protagonists of that, especially in protecting Alex. I'm complete.
Just be yourself, man. If people don't like it, that's up to them. That's their deal.
I'm being
Be
myself.
yourself.
I'm picking on you. I'll pick on everybody.
No,
That's
I'm
the whole
enjoying
point.
that,
If
Justin.
you're
That's not what
going
I'm
to
talking
be
about. I was talking
spreading-
to Amanda.
If you're going to be spreading a rule system which is not conducive to moving forward, then I will definitely pick on you. That's me. I've decided that.
Oh, I love being picked on. If I'm not picked on, I don't feel
But
loved.
If you're going to
Thank you.
defend somebody, if you're going to defend somebody and say that's how they are, not true. In the 2 years since I've been picking on Alex, he's changed tremendously. Yesterday or this morning, I received an apology from him, and he said, "Don't leave the Saturday thing, the barn raising." Because who am I going to talk to about religion and whatever else he's talking about? And I didn't even realize I was talking to him. I was berating him. So there is good coming out of it. That decision I made about a decade ago, or more than that, probably a decade and a half ago, was brutal honesty is probably the best way. And that was too harsh for a lot of people. They moved away from me. They don't talk with me. They cross the street and pretend they don't know me. Then I brought it down to, well, okay, not brutal honesty. Let's just go down to honesty, be at an honest level and talk honestly. And change the dialogue. An introduction, I was standing at the bus stop and somebody says to you, okay, I realize it's an opener. It's turned out nice again. Yes, turned out nice again. But then I would counter, well, is that the best dialogue you've got for starting up a conversation? You look like a reasonable, intelligent person. There's a million things you could say to me just to see what I've got inside my head. Why don't you try it? Yeah, you're right. So in that instance, I wasted more of my time, which doesn't exist, because time is a commodity, it's not mine. But I have put an idea into another head that let's start at a different level. It doesn't have to be the same opener every time. Do you come here often? Well, I used to, but now I won't bother because you're here. You know, I go onto the younger people's sites and I listen to what their dialogue is these days. And I'm presently surprised that it's not the same as our opening lines, our conversations. And they don't want us there for the very same reason, because we would spoil it for them. social media has opened up so much for us. We just don't know, and we don't use it properly. We really don't, because we want the same conversations. We want to have a flow. We want to be nice to each other. And then we want to go away feeling, yeah, I enjoyed that. Flipping like, did you come here to have sex or to look into ideas? No, I mean, you can have verbal sexual orgasms if you do it right. There's no denying it. You may not have an ejaculation, you may not tremble, but that's what you're doing, sexual conversations. And then you go away feeling great. Well, control your feelings. If you're going to be restrained, restrain your feelings first.
Danny, I'll be.
Somebody says, yes, I'm at a slightly higher level. Okay, explain yourself. If I'm at the higher level and I've worked at it to get there, how am I, and I've been trying to put that into you for 2 years, how am I going to explain it in 10 minutes? And if I use 2 words, you're going to be mind boggled. Then if I expand it, oh, that's too long. So in any case, no matter how hard I try, if you're not making the effort, if you're not using the online memory systems with the amount of information available with meta search engine, never mind Google, you can hone down to exactly what you want to know in any language, and you're not doing that, and you want to put it on a silver platter and put it in front of you with a nice clean knife and fork, so you can cut it down into little chunks and chew it as little as possible and say, yeah, that's how I want it. Everybody
You're
on
a
the
great
internet is doing that.
Joss Winder,
Oh,
you are.
and
I just want to say, Joss Winder, you're a great sit-down comedian.
Oh, absolutely.
Now there, I take an exception to that as well. Here I am, being reasonably happy, pleasant, making a superbly deep point, and he calls me a comedian. Next line would be, you
That's the highest form of flattery.
On the stage. Leave me alone, because you're a comedian. I'm not a comedian. I am a very serious person putting across a very serious point pleasantly.
Jaswinder,
Yeah,
the court jesters were the only people that could tell the truth.
that's what probably I am. But I object to being called a court jester.
You just were.
Because that's coming from a different
No,
level.
no, I
People
didn't
what
call,
I'm
wait,
saying.
hey, Joss Winder, I didn't call you a court jester. I called you a comedian. And we
Okay.
just awarded the Mark Twain Award to the highest level in our society here in America to
I
Dave
don't agree
Chappelle.
with him either.
And he is a
He was a
comedian.
racist.
He is a beloved racist and a beloved court jester.
Oh, that makes
And
it
we
so much better.
completely,
Yeah.
we owe him a big gratitude for speaking the truth and for being a comedian. Comedians are very well starting to be well revered. So I just want you to know that that came from honor and respect. You're a great sit-down comedian.
Okay, I'll take it in that light.
Sammy, how are you?
Yeah.
You're here.
Hi.
Hi.
I've been not that communicable.
No.
I'm doing okay. A lot has been happening, and yeah, I've been struggling.
Yeah. You're in Canada, I think, or
Yeah, I'm back in Vancouver.
Yeah. And Harry's with you?
Harry's here, yeah.
Oh, good.
Which is great.
Yes. you had such a lot. I was just like, no. It was like,
yeah, it's been super intense, and it's been a year of super intensity and
yeah.
people I love passing and
So now,
lots of change.
just for me, for the summary, I'm a bit lost. Who did not die?
Well, I didn't.
No. Do you still have people that did not die? just for me to know that you
Amazing.
have someone.
Amazing people who are still here.
Yeah. But in your family?
My brother passed just over a year ago.
Yeah.
My cat, who I hung out with for 14 years.
Yeah.
And then my best friend's husband, and then my dad. And Harry's ex-partner passed late last summer as well.
Holy fuck. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
So been a pretty intense year. Yeah.
But your
definitely.
mother is there, for example.
Mother, that was 2008 she passed.
Ah. And you have other siblings still?
One sister, so it's Terry and I that are left in the nuclear family of 5. Yeah. So
that's okay.
Yeah. So it's there's really there's just a lot there. And I feel very different things as it relates to death than I did a year and some ago. We're all dying. And we all will. So then it's choosing life. And so I don't even know what to say about where I am and what I'm feeling, other than that it's confusing and there's a lot of unfamiliarity. My normal powers don't exist. Like, I haven't really been able to communicate even one-on-one with people like I am normally able to do. And so, the interior world is very different. And the exterior world, where all of the, I get a lot of motivation from the state of the world and wanting to lean in. No powers there.
No.
Like, I don't know. I'm in a state of transition where my regular capacities and abilities, they're just like,
but then you can feel that there's no power there. That's interesting. Right?
Yeah. So that said, when I entered into the conversation, I was really curious. I couldn't quite follow exactly what was happening, but I want to reflect that one of the things that I noticed was just like, as each person was responding to each other, there was a no. Like, if you go back over the last 20 minutes and you see how the interactions were, it was like, no, and then no, and then no, and then. And I wondered about yes, and, or like finding that part that, like, can we get quicker to that part where we don't agree without saying no? Because, and this kind of, for me, I heard fragmentation and wholeness. That was part of what was being discussed. And I guess I wonder, I'm having part of, I think, why I'm not able to communicate is because I'm experiencing the wholeness in a way. And all the dark parts that I'm like, no, I don't really want to spend a lot of time there. They're just present. And so, then I judge myself into being in this negative space, but there's information in there. It's really important information that's there in the parts that aren't seen or are dark or are difficult. And one of the reasons why I love each of you so much is you're fucking brilliant. Like, everyone here is someone that I really admire. And the collective knowledge that exists there is pretty profound. And I wonder if we had more, if we were able to kind of do more of a yes and, oh, I get what you mean here, and this is, I'm puzzled about this, or like reverse the energy flow there rather than no and telling to, what do you mean? Or
it was happening.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Sounded differently, but it was happening.
Yeah.
I must talk into that. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And that's true too, right? Like I just noticed it as I came in. The no's were very, and I was like, oh, each one starts with an O. Oh, now when I say what I say, is it going to sound like a no? Also, right? Am I doing it?
I'm
Jaswinder?
grateful for you pointing out that to me. It isn't something that I haven't noticed in myself previously. But now I also know that you know, and you're pointing it out ever so nicely. And it was on my mind that with the grandchildren, I'm doing that, and that's not positive. If I'm doing it with them and I'm doing it with the grown-ups, it's definitely not positive. So I will make probably an extraordinary effort and change that dialogue ASAP.
I'm curious as to what your experience is going to be with that. If you notice it as is happening, if you're able to turn around right away, if you see what is triggering you to do it that way, Amanda.
I'm sorry, but I feel we're getting very procedural. Yes, I feel we're getting very procedural, and it's actually taking out of the content and the depth of the conversation that we actually had. And I understand you want to contribute, but there was a very deep conversation for a long time. And even when it may seem to sound somewhat no-ish, it really wasn't. But it needed an edge somewhere here and there to clarify. And so yeah, I did a lot of clarifying during this conversation. I did a lot of adding, and it was going quite interestingly. But I understand when you come in later that it sounds like, wait a minute, what are my ears telling me? And this is interesting also, that while the depth is there, then what's happening with the ears? So yeah.
One of the things that is time consuming, Alex, Anna, Dougie, is that they have so many associations of the particular persona which are not quite to my liking, let's put it that way. Once they start on their monologue, they will put those points all together and then make a presentation of it, and that's it. Then it's up to the listener to dissect it and bring it down to one by one and say that you've got those points, they're in some sort of order that satisfies you, but it doesn't satisfy me. And that's hard work. And then they've got tremendous amount of leeway to take the conversation in any direction they want to. Now, whereas an interruption at some point or a direct stop, no. This is what I think. It may sound negative, but it's far more positive to stop that direction or flow of direction there and there for everybody. Once one direction of flow is started by Dougie, I pick it up, I have a say, and then Alex comes in and he has his long drawn out session where he loses himself, and then coming back to it is very difficult. So I generally skip him and go back to the previous speaker. So I'm learning as well without being obstropolous or offensive, but sometimes it has to be done. And I am proud to say Alex is improving and he wants me to stick around. Now, what better recommendation could I have had? If you could come up with any more ideas, I'd be mighty grateful. It's not that I haven't tried them. I'm willing to try them again. If they work better and they improve the quality and we move forward to higher levels, like talking about death. Yes, Sam.
Please continue. Please finish, and then I have something to
Like
add to
talking
that.
about death, that's a taboo subject in every society. It's morbid. True. Even in our open religious society, we don't talk about it openly. We don't plan for it. Even my daughter said to me a couple of 3 years ago, I was in a bad way then. I had some problem with a large colon. It's kind of puffed up. I've got a checkup coming. Make your will, Dad, and send me a copy. And I still haven't done that. And she's quite right. Planning for the future is of paramount importance, and honesty and straight direction is it's important, so we know where we are. But we don't do it. Why not? It's painful. I don't want to think about my death, but I do think about it. In fact, I probably want to plan it as well, if possible. So these things, instead of shying away from them, we should talk about them openly. And Anna, I seem to remember a long time ago, Anna used to object to quite a lot of my opening lines. And she used to not like what I wanted to talk about. But she's come around as well tremendously. Now, if I'd have followed the same routine as everybody else, then we wouldn't be talking about the things we're talking about. And if Alex says something, and if I don't berate him, and I do berate him, and then Josh jumps in, then I've got the chance of hitting two birds with one stone. And I do. And if you don't like me, you can tell me to go away. Whether I do or I don't is another matter. I'm complete. Being me is not easy, you know. I work hard at it.
I would never try it.
I can't really say I don't enjoy it, because I made up my mind long time ago, mid-90s, early 90s even. I'm going to enjoy everything I do, hard or soft or whatever. Just enjoy it.
So the thing I would add to that is that yesterday I came to for me, a personally sad conclusion in barn raising. And I think it pertains to what was being just said right now by Jaswinder, is that in barn raising, I was particularly pushing on this experiment where the question to me was, could a single tier, no power over, no single person driven, no charisma driven, no title driven community co-create a governance model, an engagement model? My answer to myself after 2.5 years is, I and those that we actually converse with on Saturday mornings haven't yet done so. And yet, there's this trickling and increasing stream of observation, dare I say criticism, that either A, we're not doing anything, or 2, we're going too slow. So I'm about to embark on an experiment where I don't hold so strongly this single tier, single membership, everybody is equal kind of model. And I am personally disappointed that I am not smart enough and capable enough to help that egalitarian co-creation happen. So that's where my mind is. So the reason I bring that up is because in barn raising, we've decided that focus is something that we particularly want to bring about. And that will require some kind of group engagement model that allows us to focus and know when we're drifting away from focus or when we're actually pursuing that focus. Unlike some other conversations, and I would say, I don't attend Thursdays and Fridays anymore, but this is the only other one that I attend, which is under a very different model. It actually has more of an inclusive model. And there's no need, I feel, or ever been expressed, to actually maintain focus. So you get very different kinds of conversations, whether or not focus or inclusion is the primary principle. So I would say that the observations you're making about this drifting to that, drifting to this, drifting to that monologue is to be expected when you actually don't really want to focus and you just want to hear from others and you just want to see where the conversation emerges. And that will feel very different and it will be under a different engagement model. So I myself don't see any reason to puzzle over this. So I'm actually curious to see whether or not that's actually a problem. I don't think it is. It's been set up this way. Over.
Sam, I admire your experiment for 2.5 years, and it reminds me of trying to start a band where there's no band leader, there's no music. We all just get together and try to make some music together. But eventually someone has to be the leader of the band. And then you can leave the band and let the band keep doing, see if they continue. So my point, experiment is beautiful, but you have to at least set up some sort of structure so that it can be teared down and be beautiful and no ego, and that will happen, but without having some sort of theme or some sort of tempo, or I can use it in metaphors, but everyone's looking at you like, Sam, what do you want us to do? Like, I've heard people say that many times in barn raising. Sam, what do you want us to do? And you're like, what do you want to do? Do what you want to do. I'm not power over you. You do whatever you want to do. But will you support me, Sam? I don't know. I'll think about it. If I like it, maybe I will. And if I don't like it, maybe I won't. And that's what breaks people apart and doesn't bond. But if you just start playing and invite people to play with you, I think people will show up. At least that's been my experience. If I just wait for someone to tell me what to do, it doesn't work. And if I just do it and expect people to do what I'm doing, that doesn't work. But if you just keep doing it and people will show up, and I think that's what you've been trying to do for 2 years. Is that what you've been doing? You've just been doing the work and wondering who's going to come and do the work with you. So I think just put up some structure, tell people this is how I expect it to be done, and then step away and let them break that structure. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. That's just my own experience and opinion. I'd like to play some music with you.
So I know Jaswinder has got his hands up, but a 5-second response. I believe I've done that. Jaswinder?
Some months ago, we went through similar sort of conversation, and time before that as well. And I've had a private conversation with you as well. And then I gave it a lot of thought as to what could we do together, being continents apart. And there wasn't much we can do together. The idea of the magazine was a good idea, but that wasn't even a premature birth. It just didn't come about.
It was aborted, yeah.
I cannot believe it. Sorry, I cannot believe it that one imagines something to do. When the co-creation is sexy, it just emerges, guys.
Well, what we're co-creating here
sorry, speaking with you, this is super sexy. I have to say, this is not super sexy.
We have different things.
I don't understand, Amanda.
There is something like suprasex, which is a co-creation that emerges from the energy and the happiness that you have from meeting each other and having great ideas.
That is my understanding, yes, that we do have.
Yeah, and
other than that, there's not much else we can do. So we can go to higher levels of thinking and higher patterns of holding information that is conducive to a good way of living, and then we can try and pass that on. But unless we're an inclusive society, and unless we can move everybody along, and we're not all moving at the same speed. Some of us are taking a whole lot longer. That brings me back to the point Sam made, and it's item number 2. We're taking a lot longer than Sam envisaged. And I envisaged initially, and I said so, if you want to check the record sometime, an egalitarian society of the type we're looking to build. In my opinion, it would take 3 years minimum just to get to some sort of a level where we're communicating.
True. I agree.
There's so many barriers we all have that we don't want you to know that what I know. I don't want you to hold a certain thought about me that may not be pleasant for you to hold. There's all this silliness. And you're going to hold a thought about me anyway, over which I have no control. Other than I just have to be nice to you. And then you'll say he's a nice man. I don't want to be a nice man. I know I'm a nice man, but I can also be a slightly passionate man who can put a point,
That's lovely.
who can put a point over without too much offense, and that you might go away thinking, no, he wasn't offensive, and he was trying to tell me something. I better give it some thought. And I do the same on this end. And I'm very grateful for the input, and I'm very grateful for what I've learned about communicating in this sitting. And it couldn't have been done without the practice. Sitting theorizing about it, writing a book about it, reading a book about it, ain't the same as doing it. Which is a lot of people who come on here, they will say, I have done the same. I read this article, I did that, or somebody else told me that. And I am fortunate enough that I'm probably old enough and I have lived through all the situations that I'm talking about, and it's first-hand experience, which does count for a lot. The authenticity of that is invaluable. And just because I've done it, I'm not superior to anybody. In fact, I should hold myself inferior in that I'm dealing with somebody inexperienced, and how do I get them to have the same experience? Or overcome something so that they can be more useful to others, which is what it's all about. And to move to higher levels and see, you get to the top of the mountain and see what you can see. And I can always tell when to stop when Joshua turns off and plays with the dog and Tammy's doing something else. It's getting boring, this monologue, but they won't tell me. They should point at me and say, stop.
It was much more effective with the dog. I thought that was pretty good. I thought it worked out great. I don't know why I have to say
I'm waiting
stop.
for a response.
Every statement here
Better.
is made not just to the people in the room, but because it is being recorded and shared, it is a statement to whomever else wants to view it later.
It's not going anywhere, Sam. Forget it.
That's bullshit. I know exactly how many people watch these videos.
And
How many?
Sometimes up to
7.
50.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, we're getting famous.
I'll go and
Uh-oh.
check that out. Now that
Uh-oh,
you've said that,
50.
I'll check it.
Go ahead and check it. It used to be 7. It used to be less.
Are
Depends
you
on the
sure
video.
it's not 7 people watching it 50 times? Uh-oh.
No, I'm not sure. I only know what YouTube is able to tell me.
Yeah, check the stats.
I love that.
Even so, if one person decides to view it 7 times, that's still an effect.
Yeah.
True
But
enough.
I love the idea
Yeah, I
of
was just
saying that there are 7 people watching 50 times. That means they're obsessed with us.
Who knows? All I know is I just talked to my business partner the other day, and there's a synergy. I haven't talked to the guy in like 20 years because he fucked me over.
Mm.
But we still love each other. We love talking to each other, and the way his brain works and my brain works, like we could start multiple companies, because the first company, you know, made a few million, the second made 20 million. It's just easy sometimes with certain people to synergize, and people liked gathering around us because we didn't have any problems with just getting things done. Like we didn't, I'm just saying there's chemistry that you have with certain people.
Yeah.
And that chemistry, there's a dialogue, and then that dialogue turns into a trialogue because we got our third person. And every company we ever started, it was just the two of us, and then one other person came in, and then boom, it just exploded. And that's in the Tao Te Ching. The one creates the two creates the three creates all things. So I think we should have more dialogues turning into trialogues, and not try to do this quadrilogue, 7-a-log. It's ridiculous what we're trying to do here with like 9 people to agree on. It's like, come on, you can't do that.
Oh, I
That's
still
so
love it.
rare.
But I think the chemistry is important that you're sketching.
Well, like Joss Winder and Sam said, we're starting to build chemistry of multiple people. I mean, it's taken a while, but
It's scary.
yeah, it's a lot of conversations, and we haven't even all met yet in person. Like, I haven't hung out with Joss Winder. I can't wait to go to England and walk around and just be, you know. And same with you, Sam. When you invite up to go up there, I can't wait to go up there. If I was in a position in my life where I could travel, I'd be hanging out with you guys all the time, because we definitely have some good chemistry and good conversations. So just enjoy the chemistry. That's what I'm saying, is sometimes I can get certain things accomplished with certain people at certain times, not always all the time, but just the stars literally align. Like, they're right where they are at that point in life. Their kids are where they're supposed to be, and we just get it done. It's just like, sometimes you just got to find that window, open it, jump through, and run down the street together, and then come back home. So just knowing the timing, I think, is important. That's why I said, Joss Winder, you're a great comedian, is you got good timing. And that to me is what makes a comedian amazing, is knowing when to hit that punchline.
The only good time I know is now. When the objection occurs, that is the time. When the act occurs, that is the time. If you let it go any length of time after that, all the stories change.
Yeah, and the truth is always the funniest thing in the world. Like, right now, I'm taking bottles of pee and I'm dumping them down a hill, and it's disgusting, but it's the truth. So that's exactly what I'm doing, and that's funny. Because I pee in a bottle at night because I don't want to get up and go out in the cold and pee, and then sometimes it sits there and I find it disgusting. So I'm going to go dump it down the hill.
You're the only one who pees in a bottle at night, whether it's cold or not?
I don't know. Some people might like it.
30 feet to the bathroom, so I have a bottle under my bed or in the corner of the bed and on the bedside cabinet.
Here come the
And then
GCC.
I empty it in the morning. What's wrong with that?
There you go.
No,
my mom does it too.
The word is out.
I'll have to add that to the spreadsheet of behaviors, okay? You come to GCC with a bladder strapped to your ankle.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But I do love the truth. I think the truth is the funniest thing. I wish we all would speak the truth. So thanks for saying that earlier today, Joss Winder. Like, trying to get to the
Not
truth.
the first time I've said it. It's the umpteenth time. Be honest. Be accurate.
The question, though, is,
Say again?
between truth and political correctness, is that binary or is that a spectrum?
Why can't it be both? Or neither?
Exactly. I believe it's a spectrum. So there are ways that you can actually behave that are not quite so, let's say, brutal in their honesty. And there's ways that you can actually show up that are not quite so obsequious in their political correctness.
But how will I know which one is you find acceptable other than doing it and see how you resonate?
That's how we all find out. We say something and somebody takes offense. And then you say, okay, that's that person's boundary. Then you decide whether or not you want to respect it.
I don't know what that means.
It doesn't have to mean anything.
What
It
does
just be
respect
you, like
mean?
everybody's been
What
saying.
does respect mean?
It means, do you want to behave on this side of that boundary or on that side of the boundary?
Well, I want to change their boundary. Never mind what boundary they're on.
Okay, if somebody says, fuck you, okay, and you say, I wish they hadn't said that.
No, I
then
say,
you actually recoil and say, okay, I'm going to say something else.
But right now, you're not my type. I got all the patter ready. I got a brain that's virtually empty. And a mind I've never really used.
Anyway,
those are some
I
great
do ask
lyrics
that
to
question.
a song, by the way. I got a brain that's virtually empty and a mind I never use. That's great lyrics. Thank you, Joss Winder. I'm stealing that. I'm just letting you know.
I agree. We should have this as a normal quote of GCC. This is one of the famous ones.
I enjoy pain. I want to be pained.
Life is pain.
Yes, but it's so enjoyable. Have you never been whipped?
That's a reference to The Princess Bride.
Oh, I don't know him. Where does he live?
Actually, in your neck of the woods, by the way.
Oh, good.
Who said that?
I'll go look him up.
Wesley said that.
Uh-huh.
The
Sorry.
Glenn Roberts.
I just wanted to also just throw in there that I definitely can also feel, Amanda, the deeper
Yeah.
levels that are happening. Like, I didn't want to have that go by without being unacknowledged, because
Awesome.
yeah, the depth, and part of that is also the interrelationships, like each person's connection with each other person, and that yeah, there is a coherence even with the no's.
So I'm going to speak from the ego because I'm going to be polite and assume that Jaswinder is not going to speak from the ego, although that's probably wrong, and say that it's been happening.
What?
People are at various different levels of depth. And it may take a lot of time for some people to actually understand that.
Mhm.
And that, I know, is a confrontational, controversial point. But that has taken patience.
I know him well.
I
I
don't.
feel the
I'm a
governance
very
model
angry
is
person.
listening.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
So people are at different levels of depth depending on how they show up. It's really true. And the quicker you interrupt somebody, the less you actually appreciate the depth of what's being said.
Not necessarily.
Can be.
I'll give you that one.
So one awesome piece that's been happening for me is getting deeper into the alphabet code, and what it's been showing and sharing is it's like a matrix for the multidimensional entanglement of matter and spirit and form and the math of it. So there's this, the basic understanding that I've come to is each one of us are centers, also including the trees and all the beings, and that there's both the fracturing. I am me, little me, this one, got my edges, and I am also a part of the wholeness. So my lens shows me what I can see based on my experiences, and so it may be different from Sam's, but it's still a part of the wholeness. So it's holding this kind of dichotomy of it is all different and separate, and it is all one thing together. That has, yeah, those are really coming to light as I'm working with words in the alphabet code and really parsing them out and going deeper into the practice of the meaning. So that's been really cool. Sam.
When I was introduced to the alphabet code, I saw a lot of words and ideas that were, and I'll say this prejudiciously, positive and light and high frequency. And I didn't, or perhaps I was just ignorant, reflect a lot and resonate a lot on many which could potentially have been dark or shadow. Is that a true statement?
I can see how you'd feel that way, but it's not a duality. It comes from a higher frequency, for sure, like a faster, higher vibratory quality. So it doesn't come from within the duality, darkness, light consciousness that we generally understand things by. Now, for example, hate is the eternity of all that is present energy. Is that negative Or is it just a smashing together of the eternity of everything right now energy, and that it's too intense to hold? You know, it's just not possible for us to grok all and everything eternally present. So we see it as hate because the understanding isn't there, and we don't have the capacity to actually experience wholeness. Is that a positivism? It can be perceived that way. But that is the whole point, is that how we perceive the world is true, at least for us. So those billions of truths that are vying for top dog are a complexity that's difficult to grok. Anyway, I don't know if that kind of answers your question.
I'll sit with it for now. I do have a separate, very independent question.
My take on that is slightly different. I do apologize. I thought you'd finished. Sam.
Can I ask my question?
Sure.
When people bring up truth, I like to ask two questions. Number one, how do we verify if indeed there is a notion of truth? Then the verification of truth is very important. You can't just say something is true without verification. And that's a difficult concept for those of us that actually like truth and like verified truth. The second is, even without verification, if someone says something which appears to be a contradiction, or even worse, a hypocrisy, then is that not in and of itself already an indication that there may not be truth there, or there's something much, much, much deeper? Now, I want to separate that from paradox, which is how, you know, a lot of the Eastern teachings happen. But I think there's a difference between hypocrisy and paradox. And the verification idea of truth means that it's actually a deep concept. It's not a light concept. Over.
Was there a question in there?
Yes.
From
In other words, can we say something is true without the notion of verification?
No. And
Yes, we can.
From the way you've joined those three items together, that's far too many. And each one has to come separately and be tested separately. And moreover, if you step back, Amanda's just raised her hand. Did you want something to say, Amanda?
Yeah, because
I guess I'll stop there.
very,
I'll give
it's
way.
very analytical. How do you say that? The way of line of thinking is very, it only allows certain truths, I would say, in that line of thinking. So truth is in that sense kind of stretchable. A feeling is a truth. Science can have certain truths, but they can be presented fragmented. So certain facts can be true, but how you hold those facts matters. And we never discuss them again. Not so much anymore. And so, and also truth, and this is an interesting one. I have a long discussion about cosmology at the moment. And the embedding in which we hold what we find to be true for us because we want to believe it is the fostering of everything that comes into that. And thank you, Tammy, for being here. You helped me saying this. and we choose that bedding. So if we choose, like a depression as a bedding for all the facts that come into it, then everything in our future becomes depressed. If we choose that we want to uphold and uplift life somehow, and that's our way that we want to embed anything that comes into it, then the context gets interpreted. So I feel truth is not so, you see that it's certainly not static, and it's certainly not on the level of facts only. It needs much more for me. Well, if I would verify, then I would verify on cosmology, on the embedding chosen, on whether we agree on whether that's uplifting or not. And I have a friend who doesn't want it to be uplifting. He said free will is everything. And the golden rule is second. Well, and I frequently fight with him. So, but knowing that it's helping us to discuss. So that's fine. But the further I come, the more I need to know or leave open. So at least we can explore something like that.
I'm trying to understand what we mean by truth. I know what I mean by truth, but I want to understand what you and others potentially mean that is different than what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we better have that conversation.
That's why I'm asking the question.
I want you to treat me nicely and conducively, and I want to treat you in the same way. And I want to have these conversations the way we're having them, without upsetting each other unduly. So the means to achieve the end is probably more important than achieving the end. Don't overstep the mark. There are certain unpleasant situations we as society. Thank you. Door band karke jana. Shut the door, please. Shut the door. Thank you. Lovely things. They sneaked in. So these things that we hold as fast, they are slightly malleable, or even more than slightly malleable. And yes, we have to have this conversation. We have to explore those items of the how becomes more important than the actual. Sometimes just let it go, do it some other time. I have been doing that here in the last 2.25 years. Hold back. It'll come again. All conversations repeat. Everything in the cosmos is a repeat of itself, and it grows by repeating, by adding a little bit or taking a little bit away. That is a fundamental truth that you have to find for yourself. Each and everything. So if there is a nothing, then there must be, to balance that, an equal and opposite, something that exists forever. Everything has a balance. That balance point is of paramount importance. I'm saying that, and you have to find it for yourself. I'm not saying that because that's what's written. I didn't make that rule. It's already there for me to explore. So nothing is mine, not even a single thought, not even a single word, not even an iota of a second. It belongs somewhere else. Those are the fundamental truths handed to me, and I'm just exploring them. Complete. Sam was first.
I can accept that. I can actually even play with that. But I do want to say that there is a role still for the mind, because the mind is that container, you can think of it that way if you want to be very physical about it, that understands the imperfect version of that larger truth that you're describing. It's a finite container that attains an approximation or the best current understanding of how the universe works. And it's still okay. It's valid because people use that in order to live daily life. Everyone uses what's in their mind to live their daily life.
If at all.
That's not necessarily all, but I'm saying that, you can't say that the mind is nothing, which is what I heard as an implication from what you said.
If you don't,
I don't think you actually believe that, but I was just trying to clarify.
It's kind of like having a pound of butter in the fridge. If you don't use it, what good is it?
But we do use it.
We here, but you can't include everybody in the we.
Everyone's frozen for me.
Moving. I think we're all just thinking.
I can't hear anything.
I think we had a pause.
Can you hear now, Just Wonder?
Sam, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Did that happen to me and just Winder only, or was that everybody? This freezing, this locking.
It was frozen and weird for me too.
It seems like a Zoom problem then,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
local problem.
Yeah.
No.
Caching. That just, to me, brings up the great point of what the brain is we're caching. We're just caching and pulling stuff in. And sometimes it locks up. And sometimes you can't trust your brain, but you can trust other senses. And there is an intuition. There's two other brains in our body. I don't know why we don't ever talk about this. There's a brain in your heart and there's brains in your stomach. And it's so important to listen to those. Well, there's different truths for the bacteria in your stomach and different truths for the magnetic energy that's flowing around the beating and pulsing of this little magnet thing that just pushes blood through our whole body. And the intelligence of that little device that is our hearts. What's the truth for that? I think the truth is different than the fatty tissues inside of the brain on your head and different than the neurons inside of the lining of your stomach. So, you know, what is that? Like, I could use all sorts of spiritual words to define those things, but really, what is that? Like when you meet someone, you like them, you touch their hand or you look in their eyes or you just get a good vibe about that person. That's not your brain. You could say it's your brain, but I don't think that would be a truth. I think there's a lot of other factors going on there. There's chemical smells. There's an actual vibrational energy from vocal cords of someone's voice. If I talk to everybody in this slower, lower voice, it's very different. It's a very different conversation. If I'm trying to, talk to a woman I might want to sleep with. If I want to sleep with her, then I talk in that level, and then she goes, "Ooh, I'm listening to you." Because you're talking like that.
So funny.
I never talk at that level.
What's that?
You should try it.
I never use that tone of voice.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying those things are all, our senses are amazing, and we even have, in my belief system, we have past lives and past karma with each other's vibrational tones and past music that we played with each other. And tapping into those energies, I think that's really important. I think when you meet someone, when you've met that soul before, when you've interacted with that, to me, it's a part of ourselves. I'm very much in the Buddhist practice that way of, I'm meeting this part of myself that I haven't talked to in a while. Oh, okay. Who is this part of me? Ooh, why is Joss Winder so funny? Oh, yeah, that's the comedy side of me. I know that. Oh, why is Amanda laughing? Oh, okay. Why is Tammy so present and just here? And why is she adding and gaining knowledge and yes-anding? Why is she adding on top of the language of English to another level, higher vibration of the alphabet code? What is going on here? What is this part of me that wants to raise this higher consciousness? I truly believe that we're all just parts of ourselves meeting ourselves in this dimension. And that's my own belief system. And is that true? You can argue with me all day long that I'm delusional and I'm psychotic and I need to get put into a mental institution. But for me, that's my truth. So I'm going to stand in that.
I would like to I'm going to take a leak shortly because I have to, but I will respond very quickly. It's true for you. Okay?
Where's your jar?
Yes.
If you kill
exactly
all your feelings and run just on the mind, then it's no longer true. So you have to decide where you want to be. I'll be back shortly.
Where's your jar? You can just pee right in the jar. Come on.
Exactly.
I heard you, Sam. I was making that joke because I heard you say that. But I think when we all find that best part of each other, that's when we're really vibrating at that frequency of there's no separation. It just is. That's the vibration I like to vibrate at. Like, I don't
Which
see
can't
myself
happen.
separate from you guys. Yeah. Go ahead.
It can't happen if we don't lean in. It doesn't happen if we just say, hey, I'm voting with my feet, I'm out.
No.
And be totally
Or it's
vulnerable
harder.
and
It's
naked
harder.
and honest.
It's harder.
Yeah. Vulnerability is the key to that leaning in.
Well, it's a generosity and love for the other person that says, you know, in what way do I then need to shift my thinking so I understand how a beautiful, resonant, intelligent person could have this thought?
But here's the kicker of it, Sam. Try
Not
to
a
go to
but.
Arizona. That was, oh, go ahead. What?
Not a but.
I don't know. I don't know language that well. I feel like if I spoke another language, I'd be so much more eloquent. I think I suck at English. But
Ah, you're fantastic. Come on.
yeah, using the buts.
You're so playful.
I went to Arizona and I met people that love Jesus, but I met rock Jesus lovers, heavy metal Jesus lovers, hip hop Jesus lovers. It was amazing to meet all these people, and they were so different, but they had to conform to the Jesus. Like each one of them had to be a Christian, and it was like, you guys are so different. When I meet people that are completely different than me, and that was the most different place I've ever been to, was Phoenix, Arizona. I had never experienced that in my life. Like I've been to Peru, they were just like me. Phoenix, those people were different. I don't know those people. But listening to and looking in their eyes and seeing their souls and their hearts, that was where I caught the same. Like if you can go under those layers of the differences and really look at like, oh, that dude really loves to rock out. And there's a part of me that loves to rock out too. And we can meet there. Finding the similarities of the soul connection, not the truths and the brains and the society and that thing, but the soul connection similarities, that's, I think, where the fun of humanity lies, of each other. You know, like penises and vaginas, they're just like inversed, and it's kind of the same thing. One sticks out, one goes in. It really is when you look at the physiology of people. But the beauty of humans in general, not the differences of the muscular structure of a man versus the muscular structure of a woman. It's like, we're souls, man. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just ranting, but I freaking love people. I really do. That's why I meet with you guys all here, is because I'm up in the woods and I don't get to see people. So when I come on these calls, oh, look, there's people. I love these guys.
Yeah, we love you too. At least I speak for myself. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you, Tammy. I'm really glad you're here. And really thanks for being vulnerable and saying that it's hard to connect because of what you've been experiencing lately. And knowing that Harry's there to love you is so wonderful. Like, we love Harry, and knowing that he's there with you makes all the difference. I mean, the connection that you guys have is really wonderful. Like, I really got to know Harry and really like him. And I'm glad that he's there with your soul because of the way his soul is, because of what a kind person he is.
Thank you.
And Sam's like arguing with me. I fucking love it. I love Sam's brain, the way that he's like, okay, but let's think about this. If it's that way, then, and that's the computer side that is brilliant, but that anger side too, I really dig that. What's that?
It's not.
Can I jump in?
Try to put some more bass in there though, Sam. Put some more bass in that voice.
It's not.
Slow it down.
It's not that way, Josh.
That
Sam,
sounded nice. It helps. Just
I did want to respond, Sam, and think together with you about this question you have about verifying truth, if I can synopsize it to that. And I think that maybe this is where our difference is the greatest. And what I've been able to understand is that my internal lens is what shows me the world. So what I believe is that each one of us has an aperture, that an opening, or as Josh was saying, the 3 openings of the 3 different brains towards truth, and they resonate or not. And I think when there's a centering in the mind, there's less of a full whole capacity for understanding truth beyond that which we consciously believe. And so I've been practicing how to release what I think I know, release what I believe, to like be able to see underneath that. So in terms of the alphabet code, you in the chat wrote 3 times 3.
Whoops.
Did Tammy freeze for everybody else or just me?
Only Tammy froze. I'm still
She
here.
froze for me too.
Yeah, I can still hear you, both of you.
See if she comes back.
Well, I'll be back too. 1 sec. And I'm not.
Well, just Jaswinder must be taking a very long leak.
Yeah, I think so.
No, he came back. He just didn't turn on his video. I heard him come back.
Oh, I didn't.
I was going to say,
Sorry.
Sam, I have a curious question I just thought of. Do you feel, because you're closer to the internet, that it's an organic creature that we've created with all these
I just heard,
routers
do
and
you?
switches? Oh, can you hear me? Check 1, check 2. Tammy's back.
Yeah, you froze for a bit. And then because you were freezing, Josh and Amanda took turns to, I guess, take a break.
Right.
You're on mute?
I was going to say, I'm going to cut out and see. I'm going to cut out so you guys can keep talking. I think you've pushed the length of the video chat on Zoom so long that it's starting to glitch. So either
Strange, I
pop
can't
in
hear
and
any
pop
of you
back
guys
out.
right now.
Okay.
You can't
You
hear
see
Sam?
me, I'm waving goodbye.
Thanks, Josh.
Popping
It
out.
was really nice to see you.
Great to see you if you can hear me, Tammy, and hopefully reset the conversation and keep talking. Much love.
Awesome.
Peace.
Thanks. Can you hear Sam? You're muted. You're muted and I can't unmute you. Hey, Amanda.
Where's
Sam.
everybody?
Yes, I'm back.
Everybody is not peeing in the bottle.
Wait till my turn. It'll take several minutes.
This is the top of online communication. What to do when you need to go to the toilet and you're online.
I'll have to wear a diaper.
No, don't say that before Amazon will implement it.
Yeah, I'll be here tomorrow.
Oh God, we should forbid Amazon.
Anyway, Tammy, you were in the middle of something, right?
Yeah, I was. So the core piece of the alphabet code is that there is all that is in a state of being, perceiving the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the 3 is about seeing and our perceptions. Mm-hmm. And the perceptions go through a lens. What is our identity? So there's a part of this that allows a person, any person, to center into their own center, recognize that they have their own perceptions and capacities and abilities, and they see the world through that. So rather than being a truth that is the same for everyone, I think one of the fundamental differences between our way of thinking, perhaps what seems to me from my perceptions, is that you have a sense of a fundamental provable truth that can be the same for everyone. And I would suggest that a more inclusive truth that allows Amanda to have her understanding of the world being formed by what she knows in her experience is just realistic. Not that it, you know, Amanda's truth is fundamentally 100% true for her. And there's some crossover in what I know and believe is true. And that knowing is of truth isn't necessarily fully understood to be the same, but that the fundament is the same. But it breaks down through language, through my capacity to perceive, or my capacity to communicate what I'm seeing in a way that makes sense also to you, Sam, and that is resonant. But if we use our full 3 brains, we can feel the resonant truth that exists there and be able to say, oh, no, this is where I feel there needs to be some added. And that those things make a more fuller resonant truth. Amanda.
This to me comes very close to what is intimacy, because for me, intimacy is knowing each other's truth and sharing it. So the further you're away, you don't understand anything, you know, just keep on going to factual truths that not, you know, apply to your blueprint of those maybe, blueprint of understanding. I think we all have one. We know in ourselves somewhere. Yeah. So for me, it's maybe not a truth issue, it's an intimacy issue. I would say truth is always there. It's very present everywhere.
Can I actually take this opportunity to resonate 99.99% with you, Tammy? My only difficulty with people who speak my truth is that often it comes with a corollary, which says there is no absolute truth. In other words, there's no truth outside of what I believe. That's the part that I take exception to. None of the rest of what you said, Tammy, I take exception to at all. In fact, if you take a systemic view at the way the universe works and the way the brain and minds work, you have to come to this conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't accept that there's an external synchronous universe going on outside of you, which is behaving according to the way it behaves, and our minds and brains are only small little approximations at what's really going on in the universe, then you're fooling yourself. You're only saying, well, the truth is only my truth and there's no external truth. And, you know, that's basically the egotistic view of truth that is, to me, less than complete. It's not invalid. It's perfectly valid, but it's incomplete and it's not systemic. So if we're actually trying to look at things from a systemic point of view and really understand how our minds and brains work in this larger universe, one must come to the conclusion, and I believe the statement that you made, which I completely concur with the proviso that there is this universe out there that is behaving in a way that only we approximate. We only approximate. We don't ever completely comprehend. But our approximation is still useful because it guides what we do and believe. The only time in which it becomes a problem is if we believe that that's all there is, and we don't choose to learn and try and get closer, quote unquote, to the external truth. In other words, if we take this closed-mindedness that says, I know what's true for me, and it's good enough, and I'm not going to learn any more and expose myself to any more learning, that is the only thing I have objection to.
But then, sorry, you have like either, you know, solid truth as you sketched, or plural truth, which is that you can discover. But where's the intimacy of truth here?
It's an orthogonal concept from what I was talking about. I believe the intimacy in having that trust to share what's true is wonderful. It's really, really wonderful. And I do understand why the word intimacy is used in that context. I know people who have believed that their experiences were so unique that they could not tell anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And for such a person to actually confide in me what happened to that person
Mm-hmm.
was an extremely, extremely intimate moment.
Yeah.
I mean, extreme, beyond which I've ever experienced with anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
That does not take away from what I was saying earlier
Mm-hmm.
about truth.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the intimacy, Amanda, just in terms of where do we touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and the part of, that Sam's bringing about, you know, the generosity of listening. Hey, there's Helen.
People. That's amazing. You're
Hi, Helen.
all over the hour.
At the 4-hour mark, Helen joins.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the world, truth, the universe, and everything.
Helen, show yourself. Who are you? I don't know you yet.
Helen, have you joined one of these before? Is there no microphone? It shows no microphone for Helen.
No microphone.
Are you willing to at least turn your video on briefly? So we can get a sense of who you are? If not, that's okay. We'll just
Hi to
continue.
everyone in chat. She's in chat currently.
So a note, I'm actually taking my younger daughter to go visit my older daughter, and we're probably going to have a late lunch or early dinner. And I didn't think I would be on this call for so long.
Me neither.
But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the last couple of hours. I thought it was just going to be a few
Amazing.
minutes.
Yeah, it's been really good to be here. I think I need to also check out. And Harry, maybe you want to check in?
Yeah, I'm so happy to run into you guys. It's great. I was on a conversation with my friend Sven in Antwerp, so I couldn't join. But I'm so happy to see you. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
This is the year of clarity and being present.
Really?
For me, it is. It's a theme.
Good. Just checking.
That's his truth.
Well, what's next year going to be then?
Well, less of what we've done this year, more of what we're doing now with feedback loops. So that's the way forward. If we don't have feedback loops, we're going to keep repeating everything.
May I suggest we have a year of discomfort?
Again? No, not again.
I've been there, and I'm with Amanda. I mean, it's all good to
Holy
feel
fuck
the
no.
feel, but
It's supposed to be a year of love and abundance and
grace.
Discomfort does not negate love. In fact, I think
absolutely
they come together.
Well, that's an interesting one.
I would like to interject what I just had in my conversation. I think, particularly for being a man, is basically to be able to accept any discomfort it needs to be totally alive. So it's not about comfort or discomfort. It's not the question. Is what is present and what do I need to do, and whether it's comfortable or not is irrelevant to that. It's nice if it's nice, but sometimes
that applies equally to the ladies bearing a child. The thought of bearing a child and then actually doing it and producing it, and that's a tremendous, not just the physical, the mental anguish that would go with that. Well, how am I going to look after that child for X number of years? That's not easy either. So it's, how shall I put it? It's just perspective on how we look at these things, whether it's discomfort or not. It's totally irrelevant. It's our settings we need to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amanda?
Yeah, we were just saying that we had enough discomfort. So I think Tammy and I were just like, no, not again. And so I'm just repeating, no, not again. And it's not because it's not allowed to be there, but there has been a lot.
We just prefix everything that we do with the word, this is really comfortable. I'm really enjoying it. Let's put that phrase with everything.
I just have an average minimum of comfort, and it is, no matter what happens, I come with dresses and shoes. But that's okay.
Yeah, it was so good to see everyone. I got an hour, at least an hour and a half in. I thought the meeting might be, maybe it'll still be there, but probably not. And then there you were. So good to see everyone.
Yeah. I'm gonna make some dinner also, guys. So I don't know. It feels like a good point of 4 hours, 4-hour mark. Amazing. I'm wishing you a lot of, how do you say that? Good and coherent situations there.
Awesome.
People.
One last note from me, Tammy. I think what I was trying to expound on and embrace and extend the thing that you were talking about regarding truth. I think that is a place where I would love to have a continuing conversation on that one. Because I think that's a theme that comes up repeatedly in GCC. And it happens to be a block. This whole notion of truth is a block. Notion of comfort is a block. Notion of agreement is a block. Notion of identity is a block. You know, so all these are areas where I'd like to push. And if pushing means that it's uncomfortable, that's what I really mean when I'm saying a year of discomfort.
I love that. I mean,
don't think that it's uncomfortable to push on these things.
If that's all the discomfort, then I'm in.
Same.
Beginning to sound like a masochistic woman now for a moment.
Yeah, I have my pleasures.
Let's hear about those.
Oh God, that was experimental session.
You started with, first thing I heard from you, Amanda, was intimacy, and there's some relation there, I would guess.
Now it's getting interesting.
What, are we not being politically correct?
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't get you, Sam.
I said, what, are we backing off now because we're being politically correct?
I don't think so.
Not.
I think we were playful with the possibilities.
Well, if it's a possibility, let's make it so.
Yes, that's a good thing. Let's make it so.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Ciao, everybody. Ciao, Sam.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.